The very first thing this man did after entering the Eerie world was rip the school beauty's heart right out of her chest. Then he turned around and kissed a female ghost. Not only did he pull out a 2.5-meter strand on the spot, he even made the ghost blush so hard her whole face turned red. She even gave him a pair of scissors as a love token, then waited for the day he would marry her and take her home. And through all of that, the man looked completely unbothered. It turned out Zhang Che had transmigrated into a world where reality and the supernatural existed side by side. In that kind of place, even going to the bathroom could get someone targeted by a ghost. Once people turned 18, they would get one chance to completely flip their fate. On top of that, everyone also had one chance at resurrection. And if someone used a ghost stone to enter the Eerie world on purpose, then as long as they cleared a supernatural survival challenge, they had a shot at getting rich overnight and rising straight to the top. That was why Zhang Che did not panic after arriving in the Eerie world. Other than being shocked that his ghost power was a full 40 points higher than a normal person's, Zhang Che was already preparing to head for the challenge location, Yellow Springs Hospital. But right out of the gate, he ran into a female ghost. Sure, when she pressed herself up against him, Zhang Che's mind definitely started wandering a little. But the moment she took off her mask and pulled out those deadly giant scissors, Zhang Che instantly chose survival over pride and ran for his life. After all, he was still just a regular man made of flesh and blood. How was he supposed to outrun the slit-mouthed woman? Just when things were about to go completely south, Zhang Che's system finally activated. It not only blocked the slit-mouthed woman's scissors for him, but also handed him the key information he needed to win her over. The problem was, that was all the help he got. Forget cheats. The system did not even give him a starter pack. That completely killed Zhang Che's idea of trying to fight her head-on. Looking at the slit-mouthed woman's dark expression and the terrifying killing intent pouring off her, Zhang Che could only gamble on a desperate move and yank her straight into his arms. Thinking back to the system prompt he had just received, Zhang Che looked her right in the eyes and started firing off the cheesiest pickup lines imaginable. Before the slit-mouthed woman could even react, Zhang Che immediately leaned in and kissed her. The second that 2.5-meter strand got pulled out, all the murderous aura she had been giving off vanished on the spot. The only thing left was her blushing face, too embarrassed to even look at Zhang Che. After telling Zhang Che that her name was Xiaoli, she turned and ran home in total embarrassment. And after clearing the hidden mission, Zhang Che also received the love token the slit-mouthed woman had left behind. Later, when Zhang Che arrived at Yellow Springs Hospital, his main quest turned out to be working as a nurse for 7 days and taking care of the patients. Zhang Che glanced at the system prompt. Then he walked deeper into the hospital and realized he was actually the first one to arrive. But just then, a curvy nurse came walking straight toward him. She told him that room 401 needed service and that wages would be settled at 6 in the evening, then turned around and left. Zhang Che still could not help asking, was there only one person? The head nurse showed a creepy smile and made it clear that there had been another one, but that one was already dead. Still, tasted pretty good though. As she said that, she even licked her lips. Then she swayed her hips and walked off, leaving Zhang Che standing there like his brain had completely short-circuited. When Zhang Che reached the front desk, he found that there was not a single nurse on duty, so he casually picked up the room records left at the desk and checked them. After that, he made his way to room 401, where the doorway was covered in blood. Before Zhang Che could even feel a chill run down his spine, the system had already sent him a warning. Zhang Che let out a cold laugh and pulled out the red scissors. Then he lifted his leg and kicked the door wide open. Staring at the flying head marked by the system prompt, Zhang Che grabbed the scissors and drove them straight into the head rushing at him. In an instant, the entire room went dead silent. Apparently, none of them had expected that their little joke would end with someone actually stabbing a head with scissors. Naturally, Zhang Che got exactly what he wanted. He had established dominance on the spot. After introducing himself as the new nurse, Zhang Che asked which one of them needed care. And of course, it just had to be the girl's severed head he had stabbed a second ago. But the second the system warned him that the girl had bad intentions, Zhang Che fell silent for a few seconds, then grabbed the scissors and snapped them shut hard. Then he wiped the corner of his mouth and said flatly, "I didn't know your head was that fragile." That one move scared every patient in the room into behaving. Even the girl who originally needed care no longer dared to ask for help. She could only put her own head back together by herself. Right then, Zhang Che received another side task. Room 402 needed a nurse too. Seeing that the system gave no extra warning, Zhang Che finally pushed the door open with confidence. But the second he stepped inside, a female ghost lunged straight at him. Still, she was not actually trying to attack Zhang Che. She was just annoyed that the child on the hospital bed was being way too noisy. Zhang Che originally wanted to tell a story and lull the child to sleep. But right then, the system gave him another prompt. The child also threw out a threat, saying that if the story was not good enough, he would eat Zhang Che alive. When he saw Zhang Che agree so easily, the kid was instantly full of question marks. After all, whether the story sounded good or not was entirely up to him. So the moment Zhang Che started talking, the child immediately opened his mouth wide and got ready to swallow him whole. In the very next second, Blood splashed everywhere because what the child bit down on was not Zhang Che, but Zhang Che's red scissors. After everything was over, Zhang Che also received the wages handed out by the head nurse. At the same time, the rest of the class had already made it to Yellow Springs Hospital. Of course, some of them failed to complete the tasks assigned by the head nurse, and every single one of those students was punished on the spot. After that, the head nurse told everyone to return to their assigned floors and get some rest. But she gave them one extra warning. After dark, they were absolutely not to open their eyes while sleeping, or they would face the consequences themselves. As for Zhang Che, he headed to the vending machine and bought some water and food. That was when Zhang Che noticed there was actually a flashlight inside the machine, but with only 100 ghost coins on him, there was no way he could afford it. After Zhang Che went back to the dorm, he crashed immediately and started snoring in no time. Meanwhile, a ghostly figure stood in the dark, grinning as it watched Zhang Che sleep. By the next morning, the class beauty had already come knocking on Zhang Che's door. It turned out that after working all day yesterday, she had earned only 5 ghost coins, so she wanted to borrow some ghost coins from Zhang Che to buy herself something to eat. She even hinted that if Zhang Che was willing to help, she would do anything for him. But Zhang Che still turned her down. Even if he finished all 7 days of work, he would only make 700 ghost coins total, and he still needed to save up for that flashlight. After the head nurse finished assigning the tasks for the day, Zhang Che made his way to room 403. His job today was to deliver medicine to the patient in 403. After all, he had already heard from the other patients that several nurses had been eaten by whatever was inside room 403, but after reading the system prompt, even though it hurt like hell to spend it, Zhang Che still paid 50 ghost coins to prepare a cup of glass shard coffee for the patient in 403. Sure enough, the second the patient took a sip, she was instantly won over by that insane cup of coffee. In the very next second, she tipped Zhang Che several hundred ghost coins on the spot. After pocketing the rich lady's reward, Zhang Che went straight back to the vending machine and bought that flashlight without hesitation. And just like that, he also unlocked a challenge quest called Blood Knight's Lament. But all of a sudden, the class beauty came running toward Zhang Che in terror, with a monster chasing right behind her. Yet instead of saving her, Zhang Che answered with a fist the size of a sandbag. The reason was simple. Zhang Che had already seen through the fact that this class beauty was a fake. After all, the real one had a mole on her chest. The second she realized her cover was blown, the female ghost tore off her human skin disguise on the spot. But in the very next second, Zhang Che drove his scissors straight through her body. That dirty, zero-warning move left even the female ghost completely stunned, and Zhang Che showed absolutely no mercy. He grabbed the scissors and kept stabbing for a full 2.5 minutes. By 6 in the evening, because Zhang Che had performed so well, the head nurse rewarded him with an extra batch of ghost coins. Seeing that, everyone around him was full of envy, jealousy, and pure resentment. But right at that moment, the class monitor stepped forward. He pointed out that it was only the second day, and there were already not many people left, so they needed to stick together and survive as a group. As he spoke, he even pulled out the ghost blade he had obtained. His idea was to have everyone pool their ghost coins together and buy the flashlight from the vending machine. Zhang Che heard that and immediately waved him off before turning around and leaving. Then he went back to his dorm room. While checking what the flashlight actually did, he also started wondering whether he should go out and take a risk that night. Sure, the head nurse had warned them never to open their eyes at night, but Zhang Che had a system backing him up. And as long as he cleared the main quest, even a terrible college entrance exam score would still get him directly admitted. When the clock finally hit 10 that night, the very first thing Zhang Che saw after waking up left him completely stunned. The bright, tidy bedroom was gone, and all that remained was a wrecked, decaying mess. Zhang Che switched on the flashlight and finally realized that this was what the hospital really looked like. He walked over to the door and thought he heard movement outside, so he leaned in and looked through the peephole. A blood-red eyeball instantly filled his vision. Right after that came desperate knocking, along with someone outside begging for help. But Zhang Che chose to ignore it completely. He still had one resurrection chance anyway, and opening the door recklessly at a moment like this would only get him killed. A moment later, a pool of blood slowly started seeping in from under the door. At the same time, a ghostly figure had somehow appeared behind Zhang Che without a sound. Zhang Che instantly spun around and aimed the flashlight straight at it. Under the beam of light, the ghostly figure was wiped out on the spot. But just then, the sound of a woman crying began echoing in Zhang Che's ears. At the same time, his challenge quest progress suddenly jumped to 10%. The higher the completion rate of the challenge quest, the better the final rewards would be. So if he wanted to raise that progress, he had to go out and find that crying woman. The problem was that the system gave him no hint at all, and if he wandered out there blindly, the flashlight battery probably would not last long enough. So in the end, Zhang Che chose to get back into bed and go right back to sleep. The next day, when Zhang Che went to deliver coffee to room 403 again, he overheard the rich lady complaining that the crying from last night had kept her awake the whole time. Zhang Che originally wanted to ask more about it, but the rich lady gave him a serious warning not to stick his nose into things that did not concern him, or the head nurse would kill them. That was when Zhang Che realized the challenge quest was probably tied to the head nurse somehow. And Zhang Che's task for the day was to head to the 8th floor and find the patient in room 404. But the second he got there, he was scared half to death by his good friend. But this chubby little guy clearly came to Zhang Che because he needed a favor. It turned out that one of Fatty's teammates had gone up to the 8th floor earlier that day, and because he had to pee so badly, he ran into the bathroom. The result? He died in there. After reviving, the guy told Fatty what had happened. There was something inside the bathroom asking him what kind of paper he wanted, and Fatty's teammate had chosen white. Watching the whole scene play out again, Zhang Che did not even bother making a choice. He just flipped the table on the spot and launched a kick. Right after that, he pulled out his scissors. Then he went absolutely feral on that ghost, stabbing it over and over for more than 10 straight minutes. In the end, even the ghost could not take it anymore, and actually pulled out ghost coins to beg Zhang Che to spare him. Only then did Zhang Che finally stop stabbing. But the second he stopped, the first thing he asked was where the patient in room 404 was. Once he learned the patient was in the women's restroom next door, and after the system also confirmed it, Zhang Che walked right up to the restroom entrance and shouted, "Patient 404, you drink Mao Tai or not?" A moment later, the old man actually came out, and after one drink, he went completely silent. Using that chance, Zhang Che asked him whether he knew anything about the crying at night. The old man heard that, and maybe because he respected the Mao Tai, he told Zhang Che to go check the rooftop. But when Zhang Che got there, all he found was what looked like an ordinary stairwell. Zhang Che scratched his head and decided he would come back again at night to take another look. But just then, Zhang Che suddenly spotted a phone lying nearby. When he picked it up, aside from the fact that it was obviously some cheap knockoff phone, his mission progress suddenly shot up by 40%. That made it obvious. This bootleg phone had to be the key clue. But right at that moment, the system suddenly gave Zhang Che a warning. When he was peeking into someone else's secrets, there was a good chance someone else was watching him too. At the same time, the head nurse had somehow appeared behind Zhang Che without him noticing and coldly asked what he was doing up on the rooftop. Zhang Che calmly hid the phone first, then said with a straight face that he had just come out for some air and that he was not slacking off either, because he had already found the patient in room 404. Just in case, Zhang Che had already prepared himself to fight for his life anyway. After all, he still had one resurrection chance left. But the head nurse only gave Zhang Che a cold glance before telling him to get lost. The downside was that because of the rooftop incident, Zhang Che ended up receiving only half a ghost coin for the day. After returning to the dorm, Zhang Che waited until night, then turned that phone back on. The moment he checked it, he found a 13-second video inside. Zhang Che tapped on it, and his scalp instantly went numb because the person in the video was actually him. In the footage, Zhang Che pulled out a dagger and sliced straight across his own face. And at that exact same moment, a matching wound appeared on the real Zhang Che's face. Right after that, the Zhang Che in the video slowly raised the dagger and aimed it at his own throat. Just 1 second before the blade was about to come down, Zhang Che suddenly remembered what the flashlight could do and immediately turned it on, aiming the beam straight at the phone. Under the harsh light, the eerie black mist wrapped around the phone was burned away in an instant. Only then did Zhang Che finally let out a breath. The phone also returned to normal, and the video length inside changed from 13 seconds to 27. Zhang Che opened it again, and this time the footage was messy and chaotic, as if a woman was struggling with everything she had. But the person filming was strangely excited, and in the end, the woman still failed to break free. However, the moment Zhang Che noticed the mole near the woman's mouth, he immediately recognized her as the head nurse in her younger days. Since he still could not make out the attacker's face, Zhang Che started going back through the footage frame by frame. Even so, he still could not figure out who the man in the video was, but he did manage to notice a room number in the footage. And right at that moment, a quest notification rang in his ear, his progress shooting straight up to 60%. At the same time, Zhang Che decided to head to the 14th floor and check it out for himself. When he arrived outside room 1401, he suddenly heard a slow set of footsteps coming from the hallway. Then a figure in white slowly approached him. She was wearing a white nurse uniform and holding a blood-stained dagger in her hand, but she was not the head nurse. But right at that moment, Zhang Che suddenly felt something cold around his feet. When he looked down, he saw that a child made of black mist had somehow appeared and was tightly clinging to his leg. Zhang Che was so startled that he instantly switched on the flashlight and aimed it downward. The creepy child was wiped out on the spot, but in the process, Zhang Che also exposed his location to the nurse in white. Zhang Che reacted fast and immediately swung the flashlight toward her, but to his shock, the flashlight that had worked on everything else was completely useless against this nurse. The second he realized that, Zhang Che turned around and ran for his life. He kept running until he reached the rooftop, only to realize that the nurse had stopped at the entrance and refused to come any farther. That was when Zhang Che knew he had guessed right. The crying from the rooftop was something every being in the hospital feared, but just then, the crying suddenly stopped, and a little girl in a white dress looked at Zhang Che and asked who he was. After glancing at the system prompt, Zhang Che gently patted the girl on the head and told her that he had come to play with her. Not long after that, the two of them were standing in front of the vending machine. Zhang Che did not even hesitate. He bought the girl a huge pile of snacks that instantly made Xiao ridiculously happy. She happily let Zhang Che lead her around, and just as he had expected, with Xiao by his side, the nurse in white never showed up again. With that, Zhang Che made his way to room 1401, but the second he pushed the door open and stepped inside, he immediately raised a hand and covered Xiao's eyes, because the scene inside was downright horrifying. A man was strapped tightly to a cross. His whole body was already drenched in blood, and the same nurse Zhang Che had run into earlier was standing there with a dagger, stabbing him over and over like she had lost her mind. The man seemed to notice Zhang Che and desperately tried to call out for help, but in the very next second, the nurse slashed her dagger across him and cut out his tongue on the spot. Zhang Che originally thought the man had to be dead by then, but to his surprise, the entire room suddenly seemed to reset in time, and the nurse began torturing the man all over again. Zhang Che covered Xiao's eyes the whole time and quickly led her back to the rooftop. Before leaving, he even gave her a giant lollipop. At the same time, Zhang Che's mission progress climbed to 70%. As long as he could finish this challenge quest, he would receive the school's 1 million reward. And once that happened, the older sister who had struggled so hard to raise him would finally be able to live a good life too. But as Zhang Che was heading downstairs, he just so happened to run into the class monitor, who had also bought a flashlight. Zhang Che could tell at a glance that, just like him, the class monitor had also unlocked the challenge quest. Even so, Zhang Che still gave him one warning: stay away from the 14th floor. But the class monitor clearly had no intention of listening, and Zhang Che could not care less. By the next day, some people had already completely cracked under the pressure, because the task they were given that day was to give injections to the patients, and for them, that was basically impossible. They could not even understand how an F-rank difficulty had suddenly turned into E-rank. Just look at the class next door where the school beauty Yi Qingyao was. They were dealing with the same E-rank task, and Yi Qingyao herself had already signed a contract with a ghost. Even then, 13 people still died over there, so by now, quite a few had already chosen to quit. And right at that moment, Zhang Che noticed that the class monitor had actually made it back alive. But what the class monitor said next still caught Zhang Che off guard. It turned out the class monitor had already been stabbed to death by that nurse the night before and had used up his one resurrection chance. And he was not the only one. The class beauty and fatty had both used theirs too. That genuinely surprised Zhang Che, because once that resurrection chance was gone, dying again meant dying for real. But the class beauty gritted her teeth and said that only by clearing the main quest would she have a chance to get into King University. So for her, there were only two choices left: King University or King Bay. Still, this injection task was absurdly easy for Zhang Che, who had already gotten familiar with the patients. He could even order the patients around and make them give injections to the ones who refused to cooperate. That sight left the class monitor completely dumbfounded. The truth was, he knew very well that there was no way he could finish the injection task on his own. So in the end, he could only lower his head and ask Zhang Che for help. To show he was serious, he even bent a full 90 degrees and formally apologized for everything he had done before. On top of that, he handed over every clue he knew about room 1401. After that, following the information the class monitor had provided, Zhang Che prepared to head down to basement level 4, where the head nurse rested, and take a look for himself. On the way there, though, he ran into several patients who had snuck out of the morgue to fool around. Some were missing their heads, and some were missing everything below the waist. Others had simply grown an extra mouth right out of their necks. They looked noisy and chaotic on the surface, but every single one of them wanted to devour Zhang Che alive. Zhang Che had already seen through the whole thing, so while they were busy fooling around and losing focus, he quietly slipped away and made it to the morgue first. Once Zhang Che got inside, and after following the system's prompt, he realized that the morgue was filled with the bodies of his dead classmates. Right then, Zhang Che noticed a notebook lying on the table. He picked it up and opened it. It seemed to be the diary of a young nurse, and from the way it was written, it was obvious that she had once truly enjoyed being a nurse and sincerely hoped that one day she could inherit her teacher's legacy. The only thing that confused Zhang Che was why the photo of that teacher had been scribbled all over, but the entries that followed quickly gave him the answer. That teacher seemed to have done something so horrible that no one could possibly accept it. And from the very last diary entry, it was not hard to tell that the young nurse had already fallen into complete despair. When Zhang Che silently closed the diary, his mission progress shot straight up to the final 99%. At the same time, a blood-red warning suddenly popped up, informing everyone that their mode had now changed into nightmare mode, and that once night fell, the murderer from 50 years ago would appear again. While everyone else's faces filled with fear, Zhang Che was the one who actually showed excitement. Even his challenge quest, Blood Knight's Lament, had now transformed into the final stage called salvation. But before Jiang Che could even check the details, the head nurse appeared behind him yet again without a sound. The moment he saw that, Jiang Che turned and ran. But what confused him was that the head nurse did not try to stop him this time. Meanwhile, the last 3 people still left in the hospital also regrouped with Jiang Che. The class beauty asked him with a worried look how they were supposed to deal with the challenge quest now that it had entered nightmare mode. After hearing that, Jiang Che actually suggested that the safest move would be for them to quit, since all of them had already used up their resurrection chances. But the class monitor refused. He wanted the reward for clearing nightmare mode. He even apologized for stealing the ghost coins before, and promised that if they made it back alive, he would definitely make it up to them. Fatty, on the other hand, was the only one thinking clearly. He knew he would just become dead weight, so he chose to quit on the spot. As for the 2 people left, they chose to keep clinging to Jiang Che for survival. What they did not know was that the murderer from 50 years ago was none other than this very head nurse. Second by second, time slowly dragged its way to midnight. As Jiang Che and the others waited in tense silence, the head nurse finally arrived outside the room and coldly ordered them to open the door. Jiang Che and the others obviously did not move. The second she realized they were ignoring her, the head nurse snapped. Sharp barbs suddenly started growing all over her body, and those pale, delicate hands of hers instantly twisted into vicious ghost claws. Then, with just one light slash, the door exploded apart on the spot. The moment they saw the head nurse slowly approaching with a dagger in hand, the class monitor suddenly stepped forward and shouted for Jiang Che and the others to run, while he stayed behind to hold her off. The class beauty hesitated for a moment, but after hearing how firmly the class monitor insisted, she was just about to move and leave with Jiang Che. In the very next second, though, the class monitor chopped off both her legs, and without a shred of hesitation, he abandoned her on the spot. Then he turned around and ran for his life, without even looking back. The class beauty was instantly left, stunned out of her mind. What were all those words from before supposed to mean? Were they all lies? At that moment, Jiang Che also realized something was seriously wrong. He shouted at the class beauty to stop hesitating and quit immediately. Only then did she finally snap back to reality, but it was already too late. The head nurse had already made her move on her. Jiang Che knew at once that there was no saving her, so all he could do was grit his teeth and run. After Jiang Che caught up with the class monitor was the first to speak, saying that if a man did not look out for himself, heaven and earth would destroy him. Back in middle school, his father had been diagnosed with cancer. The second his mother found out, she ran away, and his grandfather died from the shock and rage. He sold off everything the family had, but it still was not enough to cover the medical bills, so if he wanted to save his father, this challenge was his one and only chance. Jiang Che listened without much expression and flatly told him that there was no need to tell him all that. Still, Jiang Che added one more thing. The class beauty had told Jiang Che about the class monitor's family situation before, and had asked him that, if possible, he should help the class monitor out. After saying that, Jiang Che headed up to the rooftop. The second Xiao Xiao saw Jiang Che, she threw herself straight into his arms and asked if he had come to play with her again. The class monitor, meanwhile, was completely confused about why there was suddenly a little girl on the rooftop. But just then, the head nurse had already chased them all the way up there, and the aura pouring off her was unmistakably that of a D-rank ghost. That was when Jiang Che understood it clearly. There was no way he could beat the head nurse head-on, which meant the salvation mentioned in the quest was the true key. Jiang Che looked at the head nurse and signaled that since there was no escaping now anyway, she might as well tell her story. Once, there was a girl who was smart, kind, and hardworking. Her biggest dream was to become a head nurse and help even more people. Through sheer effort, she finally earned her full position and became an official nurse. The work was exhausting, but she truly loved it. And because of that, she won the affection of many patients. But one day, she stumbled onto something she could never have imagined. The teacher she respected most was sexually assaulting a female patient. Even with her mind going completely blank, she still threw herself forward to stop it. And in that very moment, the teacher's true filth was exposed completely. Not only did he refuse to stop, he violated her too. To keep her quiet, that teacher promoted her to head nurse, but having her dream fulfilled in that way was never what she wanted. She wanted to expose everything, but instead of believing her, everyone started spreading rumors that she had sold herself to climb higher. And what suffocated her most was not the gossip from her coworkers, but the fact that even the patients she had once cared for sincerely began distancing themselves from her. And the girl in that story was none other than the head nurse of Yellow Springs Hospital, Sun Xiao Xiao. The head nurse fell silent for a few seconds. Then she split her mouth into a wide grin and burst into laughter, saying coldly that those people all deserved to die. Jiang Che did not argue with her. Instead, he nodded in agreement. That actually stunned the head nurse for a second. Jiang Che looked at her and said that, yes, those pieces of trash did deserve to be hacked to pieces, but there was still kindness left in her heart, was there not? And this child was the best proof of that. In other words, the head nurse who managed the hospital, the ghost nurse on the 14th floor, and the crying little girl on the rooftop were all split parts of the same person. Otherwise, how could a pure and innocent little girl make the entire hospital fear her? And Xiao, the embodiment of that remaining kindness, had been left on the rooftop because the head nurse wanted to stop her from ever being defiled again. Zhang Che asked her one thing. Was she really planning to live on forever carrying that curse alone? But those words meant nothing to the head nurse. During the darkest days of her life, the only person who had dragged her out of the abyss had been herself. Seeing that the head nurse was about to make a move again, Zhang Che had no intention of using Xiao as a hostage. After all, Xiao and the head nurse were one and the same. If Xiao were hurt, then, but before Zhang Che could even finish, the class monitor suddenly stabbed straight through Xiao with one slash. Then he burst into twisted laughter, convinced that the reward for nightmare mode was already his. In the very next second, the smile on his face froze. Right after that, his head split cleanly in two, and even in death, he could not understand why the head nurse had been completely unharmed. The head nurse only sneered in disdain. How could a cheap ghost blade possibly hurt her? Then she continued walking toward Zhang Che, ready to bring this entire game to an end. But right then, Xiao stepped in front of Zhang Che, crying. She said that Zhang Che was right. They were not the sinners. Those people deserved to die. But enough was enough. The head nurse shouted back that it was not enough, not even close. Not every darkness needed light, and not every sinner deserved salvation. Xiao cried and said that the ones who needed salvation were never those people. It was them. She could feel clearly that the head nurse was not happy at all, because their feelings had always been connected, had they not? For all these years, the head nurse had kept her here, thinking that would protect her, keep her happy, keep her from being stained again. But the truth was that she had never been happy at all. It was only after Big Brother arrived that she finally started looking forward to the next day. And she did not want to keep watching the head nurse suffer anymore. So this time, she wanted her to finally rest. As those words fell, Xiao slowly faded away into nothing. The head nurse stood there in a daze, while Xiao's bright and innocent voice seemed capable of soothing every wound in the world. And for a brief moment, the head nurse seemed to turn back into the graceful young girl she used to be. In the end, she slowly faded away with what looked like a faint, relieved smile. Only then did Zhang Che finally let out a long breath. He had been one step away from getting dragged down by the class monitor. Still, one truth remained. Joy and sorrow both had to be carried by oneself, and the only person who could truly save someone was themselves. In the very next moment, the Nightmare Mode challenge officially came to an end. Zhang Che not only received an S-rank evaluation, but also leveled up once, gained an extra 50 points of ghost power, and received 3 item rewards. The first was an exquisite urn that would let him obtain related quest items in future visits to the Eerie world. The second was a medical kit that could heal injuries when needed. And the third was a blood-red orderly uniform that would let him look exactly like a ghost once worn. Normally, Zhang Che should have been teleported back to the real world after that, but for some unknown reason, he was suddenly interfered with by a mysterious force and sent straight into an unknown space instead. At the same time, back in the real world, the fact that Zhang Che and the others had triggered a nightmare quest directly alarmed the principal. After all, anyone who could clear nightmare mode was no ordinary student. They were a true genius among geniuses. But even though the Eerie world had already ended, they still never saw Zhang Che return. As for Zhang Che himself, he had been teleported to a place called the Prison of All Heavens. And what made it even stranger was that Zhang Che found the place unbelievably familiar, because this was the exact place he kept dreaming about every single night. As he watched the massive gate slowly open on its own, Zhang Che suppressed his caution and walked forward carefully. But right then, the system suddenly informed him that he was actually the master of the Prison of All Heavens. Before Zhang Che could even fully process that, a flood of information poured straight into his mind. From that moment on, he could sense every corner of the prison, as if he had suddenly unlocked a God's eye view. With that, Zhang Che headed straight toward the floor where he had sensed movement. The first thing that entered Zhang Che's sight was a pair of smooth, pale feet. Only after that did he see the red-clothed figure they belonged to. But what left Zhang Che completely dumbfounded was the fact that this girl did not have a head. The Prison of All Heavens then gave him the information directly. She was the prisoner of cell number 1, the headless yin fiend, Xiaoman. And as long as Zhang Che could raise her favorability, he would be able to control her and even obtain part of her power. So Zhang Che immediately started trying to farm Xiaoman's favorability. But no matter what he said, Xiaoman did not react at all. That only changed when Zhang Che said he could take her out of the Prison of All Heavens. In that instant, Xiaoman finally let out a surprised cry. That was when the system informed Zhang Che that what Xiaoman wanted most was to recover her missing head. Seeing her favorability finally rise, Zhang Che immediately pressed the advantage and told her there was only one condition. She had to obediently follow his orders. But to his surprise, Xiaoman changed faces on the spot, directly controlling chains to attack Zhang Che. while coldly declaring that a mere human had no right to control her. In the very next second, however, the chain shattered into pieces on the spot. Zhang Che only let out a light chuckle. Since she refused to listen to reason, then he would handle it another way. With that, he directly conjured up a sheet of parchment. Then he tossed it in front of Xiao Man and gave her two options. First, sign the contract and become his ghost spirit. Second, die forever inside the prison of all heavens. Xiao Man picked up the contract and took one look, only to find that every single clause put Zhang Che in absolute control, while she had no right to resist at all. Faced with such a shameless contract, Xiao Man instantly wanted to rip it to shreds. But then Xiao Man suddenly noticed clause 12 in the contract. It clearly stated that, as her master, Zhang Che had to help her recover her missing head. Only after seeing that did she finally accept it willingly. After that, Zhang Che was finally teleported back to the real world. The instant he returned, his homeroom teacher and even the principal rushed over, surrounding him and showering him with concern. Their attitude made one thing crystal clear. Zhang Che, the one who had cleared nightmare mode, had become the school's new beacon of hope. But right then, the school beauty stopped Zhang Che and asked whether he could step outside so they could talk in private. Once they got outside, the school beauty first congratulated Zhang Che, but in the very next moment, she changed tone and directly exposed the fact that Zhang Che had already formed a contract with the ghost spirit. The atmosphere froze on the spot, and even Zhang Che was thrown off. He could not understand how she had figured that out. It turned out that ghost spirits could naturally sense one another. Zhang Che could only feel speechless after hearing that. He had originally planned to keep Xiao Man hidden for a while. Then the school beauty went on to ask Zhang Che how many offerings he had provided in order to contract a ghost spirit. Because in her case, she had sacrificed 13 classmates before successfully signing a contract with the ghost spirit behind her. Xiao Man also told Zhang Che at that point that humans were always the weaker side when making contracts with ghost spirits, which meant that a wildly one-sided contract like Zhang Che's should not have existed at all under normal circumstances. But instead of feeling pleased, Zhang Che only felt irritated. He had never imagined that those 13 people had been nothing more than offerings. As for the school beauty's real reason for approaching him, it was simply to exchange contact information, because in their entire year, the only two people who had managed to contract ghost spirits were the two of them. At that point, the Eerie College entrance exam was officially over, and the school began announcing the list of the dead. As one name after another was read aloud, the parents who learned that their children had died began breaking down one after another. And among those grieving parents were, of course, the families of the class beauty and the class monitor. Zhang Che simply stood there and watched the whole thing unfold, but there was not a trace of pity in his eyes, because he understood something very clearly. Even though the Eerie challenge was mandatory, no one had ever taken away their right to quit at any time. So in the end, every consequence came down to their own choices. Right then, Zhang Che's older sister came rushing over in a panic. The moment she saw Zhang Che standing there completely unharmed, the weight crushing her heart finally lifted. As for Zhang Che claiming that he had cleared nightmare mode, his sister did not believe a single word of it. She had never wanted Zhang Che going into the Eerie world in the first place. In her eyes, getting a stable factory job and living a quiet life was already more than enough. The second Xiao Man heard that, she was instantly unhappy. If Zhang Che stopped entering the Eerie world, then how was he supposed to help her find her head? If Zhang Che had not stopped her, she probably would have gone and killed his sister on the spot. Before long, the next day's graduation ceremony arrived. Zhang Che had originally thought the school would at least publicly praise him for what he had done, but in the end, nothing happened. That made Zhang Che start wondering whether the school was deliberately covering the whole thing up. Just then, however, he heard someone asking if they could sit beside him. The person who showed up was none other than the top school beauty herself, Yi Qingyao. Zhang Che had just been about to ask her a few things, but in the very next second, Xiao Man suddenly warned him that something was wrong. The principal had been standing on stage, still talking big as usual, when all the lights in the hall suddenly went out at once. At the same time, a drop of blood fell right onto the principal's microphone. Then a chain came dropping down from above, wrapped around a lifeless, twisted creature with mangled limbs, and the mass of eerie beings hanging over the principal's head was enough to make everyone's scalp go numb. In an instant, the whole place exploded into chaos, and people started running in every direction. But right then, a figure wearing a medal on his chest stepped forward and barked at everyone, calling them trash, saying it was only mental invasion and they were already scared senseless. The students who got shouted at were all completely stunned. Because the man belonged to the Bureau of the Occult, the agency that oversaw all supernatural affairs. And compared to everyone else, the people from the Bureau were actually quite pleased with Zhang Xiaoyu. In their eyes, staying calm in the middle of danger made him worth cultivating. Even Yi Qingyao's expression turned serious, because in previous years, some universities really had created disturbances during recruitment on purpose, just to test how students reacted under pressure and see whether their grades were the real deal. But the problem was that an official state agency like the Bureau of the Occult appearing at a college graduation ceremony was a first. At that moment, Xiaoman suddenly asked Zhang Che whether he wanted her to just go and beat up the people from the Bureau, since the ghosts inside them were only D rank anyway, and taking them down would be like beating up little kids. Zhang Che nearly had a headache hearing that. He had no interest in ending up behind bars, so he refused immediately. Then the Bureau uncle began his speech. On September 23 year 121 of the Eerie calendar, a residential block in Shancheng lost all 3,214 residents overnight, and when traces were finally discovered, their skin had already been turned into cloves and hung from the balconies of their own homes. On March 13th, year 122 of the Eerie calendar, the famous dismembered clown incident at a major amusement park in Modu directly caused 144 deaths. One horrific case after another pointed to the same truth. Just as people could enter the Eerie world could also break into reality. The man demanded an answer from everyone present. Did they really want to remain powerless and be slaughtered by the supernatural without any ability to fight back? And the reason he had come that day was simple. He was there to launch another Eerie challenge, except this one would not be mandatory. And anyone who wanted to leave was free to walk away now. As for the people who chose to stay, as long as they cleared the main quest, they would be directly recommended to King University or Jing University. And if they performed well enough, they could even join the Bureau of the Occult as probationary members. But rewards like that still meant nothing to people who were scared of dying. And everyone who chose to stay was teleported straight into the Eerie world in the next instant. Their main quest this time was to take the final exam at Broken Bones High School. And during the 5-day challenge, quitting would not even be allowed for the first 2 days. They entered the place as transfer students, and the homeroom teacher immediately told them to start with self-introductions. The first one called up was that spinach head guy. The second he opened his mouth, he copied that whole idol-style intro and proudly announced that he liked singing, dancing, rap, and PUBG, and had practiced for 2.5 years. He thought it was a flawless introduction, but in the very next second, the homeroom teacher blew him apart on the spot. That was when the system immediately tipped Zhang Che off. Apparently, this teacher was already sick of the same boring routine and now preferred students who were actually entertaining. So Zhang Che instantly switched into full social monster mode. He started working the room and stirring up the entire class atmosphere. And as one piece of clothing after another came off Zhang Che's body, the classmates who had only been half-heartedly playing along before suddenly got fully swept up the moment Zhang Che stripped off his shirt too. In the blink of an eye, the whole class had been completely dragged into his rhythm. Zhang Che was even about to take off his pants too, when the homeroom teacher rushed out to stop him, because there was no way he wanted the principal chasing him down with the blade later. Then, it was finally Yi Qingyao's turn. The second she stepped up, she slammed the teacher's head straight into the podium desk. Then she calmly introduced herself by saying that when she was 3 years old, she beat up the elderly home in the south and kicked through the kindergarten in the north. After pulling his own head back out, the teacher actually looked extremely pleased with Yi Qingyao. Then he had the freshly revived spinach head guy introduce himself again. And after holding it in forever, the guy finally squeezed out one line. He liked eating poop. After that, it was time for dinner. But the food laid out in front of everyone was nothing but eyeballs, severed hands, and chopped off legs. Of course, Yi Qingyao and the others could not bring themselves to eat any of it. Zhang Che, however, suddenly heard a piece of news that instantly got him excited. It was about the dorms they were assigned to. They were mixed-gender dorms. Zhang Che was practically moved to tears. He honestly had not expected the Eerie world to come with benefits like that. But right then, the dorm manager suddenly appeared and warned Zhang Che that after lights out at 9 o'clock, absolutely no one was allowed to wander around. And on top of that, the old dorm building was strictly off limits. Before leaving, the manager even added one last warning. Yes, the dorms were mixed, but under no circumstances was any girl allowed to end up pregnant. At the same time, the system also informed Zhang Che that the dorms were covered in surveillance cameras. But just then, Zhang Che noticed a small note left behind by his roommate. Apparently, they were worried he might not be able to stomach the cafeteria food, so they had specially left him some snacks. At that point, Xiaoman spoke up and said that for some pathetic F rank to play mysterious games like this was ridiculous, and asked whether she should drag the person out for him. Even though Zhang Che had no clue how Xiaoman had figured out that person was only F rank, he still turned her down politely, because he had no intention of losing this meal ticket so soon. After that, Zhang Che looked back at his status screen. The higher his ghost power got, the stronger the cursed items he used would become, and his physical abilities would also rise along with it. But the problem was that there were far too many kinds of eerie entities. Sometimes understanding the rules mattered even more than brute strength. So Zhang Che opened up the reward pack from last time and received a butterfly hairpin, a gravure magazine, a black pen, and a special pass. After thinking about it, Zhang Che decided that since he already had a cute girl as a roommate, That gravure magazine really was not all that necessary. Xiao Man, meanwhile, picked up the special pass and said she wanted to head outside the school grounds and see whether she could find any clue about her beautiful missing head. Zhang Che said that was fine with him, but before that, they still had to deal with the business right in front of them. By the time midnight rolled around, Zhang Che quietly slipped out of the dorm, but before he could even take a few steps, the sudden appearance of the school beauty nearly scared the hell out of him. Apparently, she had used some unknown method to deal with the supervisor already. Then asked Zhang Che whether he wanted to go check out the old dorm with her. Xiao Man immediately told Zhang Che to refuse. In her eyes, the school beauty clearly had bad intentions, but Zhang Che agreed right away without even hesitating, which made Xiao Man furious. Of course, Zhang Che knew perfectly well that the school beauty was up to something, but he also knew that the clue to unlocking the challenge quest was probably hidden in that old dorm. When Zhang Che and the school beauty arrived there, the whole place was exactly what he expected, broken down and filled with decay. The two of them did not split up though, because horror stories had already proven one thing. The second people split up, things went bad fast. As they kept exploring, Zhang Che became more and more certain that the school beauty was approaching him for a reason, but instead of keeping his distance, he figured it was better to stay close and see what she was really planning. Before long, as the two continued searching, they eventually made it all the way to the 6th and final floor. The second they stepped onto that level, Xiao Man warned Zhang Che that something was seriously wrong there, because the place was simply too clean. At that moment, Zhang Che and the school beauty arrived in front of the last classroom on the floor, but in the very next second, a sharp bell suddenly exploded in both their ears. The dim hallway instantly turned blood red, and every classroom door Zhang Che and the others had opened before slammed shut all at once. The school beauty's expression changed immediately as she realized something was wrong. Then she actually abandoned Zhang Che and ran. Zhang Che reacted just a little too slowly, and that moment of delay was enough for the entire hallway to become packed with black ghost hands. Xiao Man instantly materialized and stood in front of Zhang Che, telling him that because this was not the prison of all heavens, she could not stay manifested outside for long, so while she still could, he needed to run. In the next second, countless ghost hands lunged toward Zhang Che, but instead of running, Zhang Che grabbed Xiao Man and rushed straight into classroom 614. Xiao Man was instantly furious, thinking Zhang Che had completely wasted her effort to protect him. But Zhang Che had already frozen in place, staring straight ahead, because somehow a girl was now standing in front of them, softly singing an eerie nursery rhyme. Zhang Che and Xiao Man stood there quietly, listening to her song. In the next moment, the girl slowly turned around, and her eyes were already filled with tears. From the song alone, Zhang Che could hear the deep regret and pain she carried inside, and the system's prompt only made things feel even more cryptic. But the violent pounding on the door outside gave Zhang Che no more time to think. He reached out and tried to grab the girl, intending to take her away with him, but her body suddenly scattered into butterflies and vanished. All she left behind was a clue and a newly unlocked challenge quest called 1,000 Tongues Make Truth. Right then, the ghost hands smashed through the door. Without hesitation, Xiao Man grabbed Zhang Che by the collar. Then she scooped him up in a princess carry and jumped straight down from the 6th floor. By the time they landed, Zhang Che was so shaken up, he ended up vomiting everywhere. At that moment, the school beauty handed him a handkerchief. Then she immediately asked why he had not run with her just now. But after listening to Zhang Che ramble nonsense, the school beauty suddenly seemed to realize something, and directly asked whether he had already found a clue. Zhang Che simply shoved the handkerchief back into her hand, left her with a casual, "You tell me," and turned around, ready to head back and sleep. But the next thing the school beauty said stopped him cold. She offered 1 million for the clue. That was enough to make Zhang Che stop walking, and he told her the clue was inside classroom 614. Still, he warned her that the whole building was crawling with tentacle monsters now, so she had better be careful not to get herself killed. The school beauty, however, looked completely confident, dot-eye in her eyes. If Zhang Che could make it out alive, there was no way she would die in a place like that. Zhang Che could not be bothered to keep warning her, so he just waved and left. Right then, the ghost spirit inside the school beauty suddenly asked when she was finally planning to sacrifice Zhang Che to it. In its eyes, this so-called ghost spirit inside Zhang Che was nothing more than a defective product and not worth fearing at all. While the school beauty told it to wait, as for that 1 million, it had been fake from the start. She did not even have enough money for herself. But the truth was that Zhang Che had known from the very beginning that Yi Qingyao was absolutely not someone easy to deal with. When Zhang Che returned to class the next day, he found that the school beauty's seat was completely empty. Zhang Che did not care whether she was dead or alive. Instead, he planned to ask around and see whether anyone knew anything about the girl from room 614 in the old dorm. But the second those words came out of his mouth, every eerie being in the classroom turned toward him at once. all of them staring with vicious looks. Zhang Che instantly realized he had stepped on a landmine with that question. Just then, a beautiful teacher happened to walk into the classroom. Zhang Che reacted fast, shouting for everyone to stand before the class monitor could even move. And that was what barely diffused the crisis. This beautiful woman turned out to be the chemistry teacher, and today she planned to run an experiment that required 2 students to cooperate. As she spoke, she slowly took out a bottle of green liquid, and Zhang Che, the one who had just yelled for everyone to stand, was immediately targeted by her. With a smile, the teacher told them that after drinking it, they had to tell her exactly how it tasted. One unlucky boy drank it first. After taking a sip, he said it tasted sweet and sour. In the very next second, though, his whole body melted into a pile of sludge. Hearing that it was apparently a sweet and sour flavor, the teacher only smiled in satisfaction. Then she slowly turned to Zhang Che and asked why he was not drinking. Holding the bottle, Zhang Che found himself completely stuck. Drinking it was a disaster, and refusing was not any better. As the chemistry teacher's patience visibly started running out, Zhang Che's mind spun fast, and he immediately launched into a flood of elegant compliments about the drink, saying that such a perfect beverage, one that even came with its own fragrance, would be completely wasted on someone like him. Then, before anyone could react, he grabbed a substitute victim and shoved the drink straight into that person's mouth. The chemistry teacher was clearly very pleased by Zhang Che's shameless flattery, and Zhang Che, who had barely escaped disaster, quietly let out a breath of relief. By lunchtime, everyone was starving, because there was simply no way they could stomach the kind of food the Eerie beings ate. Some people had already decided that the second the 2-day restriction ended, they were quitting the Eerie world on the spot. Right at that moment, Yi Qingyao suddenly appeared again. The moment she showed up, she went straight to Zhang Che and said that she acknowledged his strength and wanted to cooperate with him on a deeper level. Xiao Man also appeared at that moment and warned Zhang Che that she could clearly sense Yi Qingyao. And even more than that, the ghost spirit inside Yi Qingyao was filled with hostility toward Zhang Che. So Xiao Man repeatedly told him to stay as far away from Yi Qingyao as possible, which meant Zhang Che once again switched into full nonsense mode. This time, even if Yi Qingyao offered another million, Zhang Che still chose to keep playing dumb. That left the great school beauty so angry that she could barely keep her composure. After Zhang Che left, Xiao Man was delighted that he had finally listened to her warning. She was so happy, in fact, that she immediately suggested they go take a walk outside the school. Zhang Che looked at Xiao Man's favorability and saw that she was already getting close to 50 points. So he agreed to Xiao Man's request, partly because he was honestly curious what kind of ability he might unlock, even if leaving the mission area meant losing his resurrection chance. But when the moment actually came, Zhang Che was still completely dumbfounded, because the biggest trump card giving him the confidence to explore outside was supposed to be that blood-red orderly uniform that could make him look exactly like a ghost. Yet nobody had bothered telling him it was actually women's clothing. Zhang Che tried his best to ignore Xiao Man, who was laughing so hard she was practically losing it. But what made things even more awkward was that he ran into someone he knew. That's right. The beauty riding the motorcycle was none other than the slit-mouthed woman Zhang Che had kissed before. Xiaoli stared blankly at Zhang Che and immediately asked whether his taste had changed. After that, Xiaoli took Zhang Che out for a ride on her bike. Sitting behind her, Zhang Che was so awkward he felt like his soul was leaving his body, so he could only desperately search for topics to talk about. He also took the chance to sincerely apologize for kissing her without permission before. The moment those words came out, Xiaoli slammed on the brakes and angrily told Zhang Che to get off. Then she started beating and kicking him on the spot. It turned out that after Xiaoli had given Zhang Che the red scissors as a token of love that day, she had been waiting for him to come and propose. But no matter how long she waited, Zhang Che never showed up. Zhang Che hurriedly explained that it was not because he did not want to go dot, it was because Xiaoli had never told him where she lived. Hearing that, Xiaoli froze on the spot. Then she turned her face away with a blush. After that, she quietly told Zhang Che to get back on the bike. In the end, Xiaoli brought Zhang Che to the only bank in the Eerie world, Heaven and Earth Trading House. But the moment they arrived, Xiaoli's mood visibly dimmed, because beings like slit-mouthed women were born from the resentment left behind by scumbag men. They could fall in love, but their partners absolutely could not be human. In the next moment, Xiaoli slowly removed the hairpin from her hair. She told Zhang Che that this would probably be the last time they ever saw each other, so she wanted to leave him a keepsake as a farewell. Zhang Che clearly froze when he heard that. Then he just stood there, silently watching Xiaoli leave. He carefully put the hairpin away, not knowing at all that Xiaoli had actually left it for him as something that could save his life in the future. Just then, a human-looking attendant came out to receive Zhang Che. Since Zhang Che was wearing the ghost orderly uniform, the man did not realize that Zhang Che was human too. Zhang Che, however, could tell at a glance that this person was another challenger assigned to a different scenario. And just as Zhang Che was about to help him up, in the very next second, the man's head exploded. It turned out the manager found him useless because he did not even know how to receive customers properly. By now, Zhang Che was almost numb to scenes of heads getting blown apart. But right then, the manager suddenly twitched his nose because he had caught the scent of a human on Zhang Che. Just as Zhang Che was wondering how he should handle this, Xiaoman told him not to panic and said she would take care of it. Then Xiaoman pressed herself against Zhang Che and directly merged into his body. In the very next second, Zhang Che's hair turned into a brilliant gold. Then he coldly questioned the manager, asking whether Heaven and Earth Trading House really treated VIP guests this way. The aura Zhang Che released in that moment made the manager shiver with fear. After Zhang Che reported his bank card number and password, the manager immediately bent over and greeted him with complete respect. Zhang Che could not even be bothered to look at him and merely ordered the manager to bring out his belongings at once. After that, Zhang Che walked straight into the VIP room and sat down to wait. During all this, Xiaoman also told Zhang Che that she had actually paid someone a long time ago to search for her beautiful head, and they had agreed that once it was found, it would be delivered straight to Heaven and Earth Trading House. After the manager brought the item over, he bowed respectfully and left the room. Xiaoman could barely wait to separate from Zhang Che's body, but the second she opened the box with her own hands, the entire atmosphere froze solid because the box was completely empty. A low, bitter sob slowly came from Xiaoman, and Zhang Che immediately tried to comfort her, wondering whether maybe the person still had not found it yet, or maybe the payment had not been enough. But the truth was nothing like that. Xiaoman had spent a full 1 billion on finding that head, so money was absolutely not the issue. And the fact that they had returned an empty box only meant one thing. That person had abandoned the commission entirely. Hearing that, Zhang Che was genuinely stunned. He had never imagined Xiaoman was actually that rich, but Xiaoman clearly did not care about money anymore. She only said bitterly that no amount of money could bring back her beautiful head. She even told Zhang Che that she still had some money left in Heaven and Earth Bank, and if he wanted it, he could have all of it. After saying that, she turned and prepared to leave. Zhang Che immediately reached out and grabbed her, asking whether she had forgotten that he had already promised to help her get her head back. And not only would he get it back, he would also make the person who broke the deal spit out every last cent they had taken. The moment Xiaoman felt how sincere Zhang Che was being, her favorability toward him began shooting upward at an astonishing speed. By the time she threw herself straight into Zhang Che's arms, her favorability had already reached 70. At the same time, the Prison of All Heavens informed Zhang Che that Xiaoman's favorability had reached the required threshold, meaning he could now draw one of the headless Yin Fiend Xiaoman's abilities. Xiaoman had many abilities, and aside from the ridiculous jump rope master, almost all of the others were insanely strong. As the roulette wheel slowly began to spin, Zhang Che immediately went for reverse jinx logic and started desperately chanting in his heart that he wanted jump rope master. There was a saying that the more you wanted something, the less likely you were to get it. But somehow the pointer really did stop on Jump Rope Master. Just as Zhang Che was sinking into total despair, thank God that turned out to be a fake out, and the pointer's true final stop was mental reinforcement. After gaining that ability, both Zhang Che's mental strength and the power of any mental attacks he used in the future would be massively increased. Later, as Zhang Che sat in the taxi on the way back, he kept thinking about how he could develop this new power. The first thing that came to mind was the mental illusion technique that the bureau uncle had used before. But right then, the driver suddenly brought the car to a stop. Before Zhang Che could even understand what was happening, the driver transformed into an eerie creature and lunged straight at him. What greeted it, however, was Xiaoman's dainty-looking but brutally heavy punch. It turned out the driver was actually a D-rank ghost with the ability to see through disguises. So once it realized Zhang Che was human, it wanted to eat him on the spot. Unfortunately for it, Xiaoman had already been in a terrible mood, so when she started hitting, she did not hold back in the slightest. In the end, she even smashed the driver's head apart. But that created a new problem. With the driver dead, no one was left to drive Zhang Che back. So by the time Zhang Che finally made it back to the dorm, both his legs felt like they no longer belonged to him. Zhang Che had originally planned to collapse straight onto the bed, but then he suddenly noticed movement under it, so he immediately bent down and looked underneath. A beautiful girl suddenly appeared right in his line of sight. That sight left Zhang Che completely frozen. He was so startled that he almost screamed, but in the next second, the girl shot out a hand and covered his mouth. Then she whispered for him to keep it down, but right at that moment, the dorm door was pushed open. The girl instantly cursed under her breath, realizing things had gone bad. It turned out that lights out had already begun without them noticing. The dorm supervisor stepped in and directly demanded to know what they were doing instead of sleeping. Zhang Che had just been about to explain when the girl suddenly slipped back under the bed again. In the end, Zhang Che was left standing there alone, facing the dorm supervisor by himself. Zhang Che pulled out the red scissors and forcibly blocked the dorm supervisor's attack. Xiao Man, standing off to the side, looked completely unimpressed. It was only an E-rank ghost, and she even asked Zhang Che whether he wanted her help, but Zhang Che turned her down right away. He He wanted to test his current combat strength for himself. The moment he said that, he gripped the red scissors and charged straight at the dorm supervisor. In an instant, the two of them were locked in a fierce fight. Even though the dorm supervisor moved as fast and nimbly as a monkey, Zhang Che was not completely unable to hit him. So when Zhang Che realized that the supervisor had clearly taken hits but still showed almost no injuries, he immediately understood that something was seriously wrong with this dorm building itself. To put it simply, as long as they were inside this dorm, the supervisor was getting a full-on boss buff. As the dorm supervisor lunged at him again, Zhang Che suddenly had an idea and pulled out the Gravier magazine he had gotten before, holding it straight in front of the supervisor. The dorm supervisor froze on the spot. Then he grabbed the magazine with a face full of wild joy, because the beauty on the cover turned out to be his favorite idol. The man switched attitudes instantly, and even seriously reminded Zhang Che to go to sleep earlier next time. After saying that, he ran off as fast as he could, clutching the magazine the whole way. Zhang Che could only stand there speechless. At that point, the beautiful girl who had been hiding under the bed finally crawled out. She looked at Zhang Che with pure admiration, because in her eyes, he was the first person ever to survive being caught awake by the dorm supervisor. Zhang Che himself was stunned and instinctively asked whether everything was fine as long as the dorm supervisor did not see them. And according to the girl, that really was the rule, which made Zhang Che want to curse on the spot. What kind of ridiculous logic was that? At that point, it would be easier to just not come back at night at all. But just then, the system informed Zhang Che that the beautiful girl in front of him was actually the younger sister of the girl from room 614 on the 6th floor of the old dorm, which meant her roommate was very likely a key clue. So Zhang Che immediately started playing the emotional card from just now, hoping to use his hero who saved her image to get more information out of her. But the girl said that aside from anything related to room 614, she would answer anything else. Zhang Che, of course, had no intention of giving up that easily, so he immediately started making up serious-sounding nonsense and building himself into some grand, mysterious figure. He claimed that everything he had done here was for the sake of saving that girl who had fallen into endless suffering. And this beautiful girl had clearly never experienced human-level emotional manipulation before. Looking at Zhang Che's face, which seemed filled with sincerity, the twin-tailed girl actually started believing him a little. After staying silent for several seconds, she finally told Zhang Che that if he really wanted to help her sister, then he should go take a look at the girls' restroom on the 6th floor of the old dorm. And once he got there, everything would become clear. In the very next second, the girl suddenly started digging around under her blanket. A moment later, she pulled out a doll and handed it to Zhang Che. She told Zhang Che very seriously to keep the doll safe, and also said that after lights out, 3 of her classmates had all gone to that old dorm building. Hearing that, Zhang Che was a little surprised. It looked like not only Yi Qingyao, but those other 3 people too, were far less simple than they seemed. After that, Zhang Che took out the medical kit. He gave the injuries he had suffered during his fight with the dorm supervisor some basic treatment. Xiao Man was still a little concerned about Zhang Che's condition. But Zhang Che, being Zhang Che, was dense as hell. He annoyed Xiao Man so badly that she almost wanted to cancel their contract on the spot. But right then, a sharp pain suddenly stabbed through Zhang Che's mind. It felt like countless needles were piercing straight into his brain. Xiao Man immediately told him that he was under mental invasion, because those eerie beings could influence people directly through spiritual force. Once someone's willpower was too weak, they could be dragged by force into another space. In other words, the ghost hands they had encountered on the 6th floor before had actually been a form of mental invasion all along. And that kind of invasion could also cause real damage. If they had not jumped from the building back then, those ghost hands really could have torn them to pieces. After saying that, Xiao Man actually became curious about how Zhang Che's mental strength had suddenly grown stronger. After all, she still had no idea that Zhang Che could draw her abilities. But just then, the doll in Zhang Che's hand suddenly came to life. Then it jumped out of Zhang Che's arms and made its way straight to the girls' restroom on the 6th floor. The moment Zhang Che got close, he heard heavy breathing coming from beside the restroom. Zhang Che paused and listened for a second. Then he kicked the door open without hesitation. Inside, that spinach-head classmate was clutching his head with both hands and screaming not to be killed. On top of that, both his hands and feet were already broken. Even worse, his mind had clearly snapped to the point where he no longer even recognized Zhang Che. Xiao Man took one look and told Zhang Che that the guy had probably been scared insane. Zhang Che did not waste a word and immediately pulled out the medical kit. Then he took out one of the syringes and gave the spinach-head classmate a shot. The effect of that injection was absurdly good, and the spinach-head boy immediately came back to his senses. The instant he saw Zhang Che, he looked like he had just seen his savior, thanking Zhang Che over and over and insisting that Zhang Che had saved his life. From their later conversation, Zhang Che learned that the spinach-head boy had been trying to gamble for wealth and danger, because once midnight passed, he would have been able to leave the eerie world. He also warned Zhang Che that there was something extremely dangerous near the restroom, and that the other 2 classmates were definitely not good people either. After saying that, the The spinach head boy left the eerie world on the spot. Zhang Che then found 2 dead infants inside the restroom. But what he had not expected was that these 2 dead infants not only cried, but also had teeth and lunged at the doll to bite it. What made Zhang Che even more helpless was that, just as the spinach head classmate had described, the moment he found those 2 dead infants, it was like he had triggered some kind of switch. Hundreds of eerie beings throughout the entire old dorm building immediately turned and locked their eyes on Zhang Che. And the only reason they did not attack him right away was the doll his beautiful roommate had given him. Those eerie beings were actually afraid of it. At that moment, the doll gently reached out and stroked the 2 dead infants with a strangely tender expression. But to Zhang Che's surprise, the infants showed no gratitude at all, and instead opened their mouths wide and started biting the doll savagely. At the same time, wave after wave of whispering voices kept pouring into Zhang Che's ears. Every eerie mouth around him was talking about the same girl, someone named Zu Xiaoyu. It turned out that Zu Xiaoyu had gotten pregnant back in high school, and after that, her classmates found out. In no time, rumors spread through the entire school, and one vicious comment after another came crashing down on her. Zhang Che stepped forward and sliced out the tongue of one of the eerie beings on the spot. But he quickly realized that the name of Zu Xiaoyu's key boyfriend had been deliberately erased, leaving no way to know who it was. At that moment, Zhang Che finally understood everything. That was why this challenge quest was called 1,000 Tongues Make Truth. Zu Xiaoyu had not been killed by a blade or a hand. She had been talked to death. Meanwhile, back in the real world, after the spinach head boy returned, he found the classroom dark and smeared with blood everywhere. Then suddenly, a hand clamped over his mouth from behind. It was the bureau uncle, signaling for him not to make a sound. And at the root of everything happening here was still the school itself, because the school had already been dragged into a real supernatural incident. Originally, after Zhang Che and the others entered the eerie world for the challenge, the principal had wanted to cancel that forced 2-day survival restriction. But the bureau uncle rejected the idea immediately. It was not that he did not want to remove it, it was that he simply could not. The main reason was that in recent years, cases of the eerie world invading reality had been happening more and more often, and the ghost stones used as the medium were starting to become increasingly unstable. Even the ghost stone apparatus itself had developed problems that could no longer be reversed or repaired. So the claim that quitting was forcibly prohibited was really just another way of wording things to keep public panic under control. As for why the Bureau of the Occult had suddenly intervened in a high school graduation ceremony, the reason was the same. Supernatural incidents were becoming too frequent, and the Bureau was running out of people. The only thing they could do now was quickly identify outstanding challengers and recruit them into the Bureau. Just a few days ago, an eerie entity known as Infinite Terror had already killed 2 C-rank challengers, and that was not even the most horrifying part. The truly terrifying thing was that it could absorb the fear in people's hearts and use it to strengthen itself. And now, that eerie being was already on its way toward the school. To make things worse, this bureau uncle was not even a combat-type challenger. But even so, in order to protect the hundreds of students here, he had already made up his mind not to retreat even if it killed him. All he could do now was hold the line and wait for bureau reinforcements. But what no one expected was that the support team rushing over had also been attacked by eerie entities on the way, which meant the fastest reinforcements still would not arrive for at least another 3 hours. Meanwhile, back inside the eerie world, Zhang Che snatched the doll back from the dead infants that were tearing into it, because he knew perfectly well that if the doll got destroyed, he would be ripped apart by those hundreds of eerie creatures in the very next second. After that, Zhang Che made his way into dorm room 614. Zu Xiaoyu was nowhere to be found. But from the writing left on the wall, Zhang Che was able to confirm that the 2 dead infants really were her children. Even so, a powerful sense of something being off still rose inside him. Then, all of a sudden, a song drifted into Zhang Che's ears, and that voice very likely belonged to Zu Xiaoyu herself. The moment that song echoed out, the eerie beings in the building went completely berserk. Xiaoman asked Zhang Che whether, now that the path was blocked by eerie creatures again, he wanted to try another round of bungee jumping. Zhang Che shut that idea down immediately, because Xiaoman had already told him before that the eerie beings in this old dorm specialized in mental attacks, and now he just happened to have gained mental reinforcement, which meant these pathetic F-rank things could no longer do real damage to him. Sure enough, Zhang Che moved almost casually and cut down every eerie creature that came at him. Even though Zu Xiaoyu's voice kept echoing in his ears, Zhang Che had no time to dwell on it now. It was only after he finally broke out of the old dorm that Xiaoman truly began to look at him a little differently. At the same time, Zhang Che had already secured 3 special clues. With those 3 clues in hand, this challenge quest was practically already in the bag for him. But just then, movement behind him suddenly caught his attention. It turned out the school beauty had also been attacked by those eerie creatures. She clearly could not understand why they had suddenly gone wild, and she understood even less whose female voice had been echoing through the building just now. Because aside from the eerie beings, she had not seen anyone else. That was until she spotted Zhang Che, breathing hard from exhaustion. In that instant, something seemed to click in her mind, and she bluntly asked whether the riot in the old dorm had been Zhang Che's doing. Zhang Che obviously was not about to admit it, so he just laughed it off and played dumb. That genuinely pissed the school beauty off, and she snapped at him, asking whether playing the pig to eat the tiger was really that fun. Zhang Che immediately shot back that with the overwhelming aura of a born emperor. There was no way he looked anything like a pig. That completely unserious answer drove the school beauty straight over the edge. In the very next second, she dropped the act entirely, murderous intent pouring out of her. Since Zhang Che refused to talk, then there was no need for him to say anything ever again. With no clue in hand, the school beauty directly fused with the ghost spirit inside her. Then she came straight at Zhang Che with killing intent. Zhang Che, on the other hand, simply dodged left and right, effortlessly blocking every single one of her attacks. Seeing that, the school beauty sneered and declared that the ghost spirit inside her was a first-rank one. A crippled, incomplete spirit like the one inside Zhang Che was never going to be her match. But in the next instant, Zhang Che's hair turned into a brilliant gold, and at the same time, he fully merged with Xiao Man. He even had the spare nerve to take out his scissors and tidy up his nails, then mockingly asked her which blind old eyes of hers had looked at his golden hair and still decided his ghost spirit was some defective piece of trash. The school beauty completely lost it and charged at him again. Zhang Che did not even bother dodging this time. When her dagger slammed straight into the center of his forehead, she was horrified to find that it had only barely cut his skin. The school beauty froze in disbelief, because that strike had been her full power. At that point, Zhang Che clearly had no more interest in playing around. He grabbed her, then drove a brutal knee straight into her abdomen. The school beauty flew backward, clutching her stomach in agony. Her face was full of disbelief, because in that single instant, all of her internal organs had been shattered. Even the ghost spirit inside her screamed at her to run, because it had completely misjudged the level of the ghost spirit inside Zhang Che. The truth was that Xiao Man had already hidden and suppressed her own aura the moment she sensed the school beauty's ghost spirit trying to probe her. Zhang Che watched the school beauty stagger around, still trying to escape. He looked like a golden god, surrounded by radiant magic patterns as multiple chains burst forth from the glowing symbols beside him. In the next second, those chains wrapped around the fleeing school beauty and locked her down completely. She slowly raised her head and stared at Zhang Che, floating in the air like some divine being. With a bitter smile, she felt that provoking Zhang Che had probably been the single worst decision of her life. Zhang Che looked down at her and casually asked whether she still was not planning to quit. The school beauty dropped to her knees and begged Zhang Che to spare her, even offering 2 million to buy her life and swearing that this time she would not lie to him again. But when it looked like Zhang Che still was not willing to agree, the school beauty panicked and hurriedly added that her family possessed all kinds of forbidden artifacts, and if Zhang Che let her go, then once she cleared the Eerie challenge, everything could be his. In the end, Zhang Che agreed, but only on one condition. For the rest of this Eerie world run, the school beauty was not allowed to make another move against him. She agreed without hesitation, and to prove it, she ruthlessly twisted off her own head on the spot and burned one of her resurrection chances. The truth was, it was not that Zhang Che genuinely wanted to let her go. It was that he knew perfectly well he could not truly kill her right now, not when she still had at least one revival left. And with a family line made up of generation after generation of Eerie challengers, there was no way she did not have more life-saving tools hidden somewhere. So if he was going to kill her, it had to be done in one absolutely foolproof strike. What Zhang Che did not know was that somewhere in the shadows, the English teacher of Broken Bones High School had been silently watching him the whole time. Meanwhile, back in the real world, aside from the students still hiding for their lives, the bureau uncle was still out there fighting with everything he had. But the problem was simple. He had never been a combat-type challenger. Against wave after wave of Eerie creatures pouring in, he was quickly pushed into a losing position. And the second he saw one of those creatures ignore him and lunge straight at the spinach head student instead, he finally understood the truth. These Eerie things had been targeting the students from the very start. In the next instant, blood burst into the air. The bureau uncle had thrown himself right in front of the spinach head student, even with the right side of his chest pierced clean through. The man still refused to give an inch, roaring out that every stroke of Daxia was backbone. Every thought of this land was the future, and as long as he was still breathing, nobody was laying a finger on those kids. Maybe it was that boiling hot declaration that finally got through, because the spinach head student, who had been scared stiff until then, suddenly grabbed the ghost blade beside him and charged at the eerie creatures through clenched teeth. Back in the eerie world, however, a broadcast suddenly rang across the entire school. Final exams were approaching, so the principal had decided to organize an extracurricular activity. All teachers and students were to gather at the stadium immediately. On the way there, Zhang Che ran into the school beauty and the last remaining student. The school beauty told Zhang Che that the other student from last night was dead. Zhang Che only shot back one cold question: dead, or did they quit? But the school beauty never gave him a straight answer. Zhang Che sneered inwardly. If he had not already heard things from the spinach head guy earlier, he might actually have bought the performance. Once they arrived at the stadium, the principal officially announced the next event, a game called Cat and Mouse. The rules were simple. 3 teachers would act as the cats, while the students would play the mice, and the game would continue until school let out in the afternoon. At the same time, the final exam had been moved up to tomorrow, but then the principal added one more warning. If a mouse got caught by a cat, that mouse would be eaten. That made Zhang Che pause. There should have been 3 full days left in the 7-day challenge. So if the exam was tomorrow, that meant this whole mission was about to end a full day early. And when he heard the other students whispering in confusion too, Zhang Che instantly realized they had known nothing about this event either, which could only mean one thing. Someone was trying to force the pace and stop the mission from unfolding normally. At that moment, every student scattered to find a place to hide. But Zhang Che alone stayed where he was, because he was checking the new prompt from the system. And when he saw that this event had been proposed by Teacher Gu, Zhang Che grew suspicious, because from beginning to end he had never once seen this teacher. Once the hiding time ended, the teachers officially began hunting the students. Zhang Che chose to hide in the same classroom where they normally had lessons, because in his mind, the most dangerous place was often the safest place. But in the very next second, the homeroom teacher suddenly broke into a disturbingly twisted grin, dragging a chainsaw behind him. He slowly walked up to the podium desk. Then he raised it and hacked straight downward beneath the desk. A blood-curdling scream exploded through the classroom, because the one hiding there was not Zhang Che at all, but another student who had made the exact same gamble he had. Only after watching the homeroom teacher leave did Zhang Che finally let out a quiet breath. But by that point, the main thread of this challenge had become crystal clear. Zu Xiaoyu got pregnant with someone's child, and after that, the entire school drowned her in gossip. Later, she gave birth to a pair of twins in the restroom of the old dorm building. And in the cruelest twist of all, she ended up killing her own children. Then, under the endless pressure of everyone's venomous words, she finally lost her mind and cursed the entire school, leaving every eerie being there too afraid to even bring up the truth. That was exactly why this challenge quest was called 1,000 Tongues Make Truth, and why the trigger clue was named Unfinished Regret. Zhang Che felt instantly irritated. Somehow he had ended up with another Scumbag Man storyline. But even then, that heavy sense that something still was not right refused to leave his mind. He had originally forced himself to put the thought aside and was just about to go to the restroom. But at that exact moment, the system unexpectedly gave him a prompt about the abandoned classroom on the 4th floor. And when Zhang Che came back out of the restroom, he realized that the school beauty had been following him the whole way. She did not bother beating around the bush either. She straight up said she wanted to cooperate. This time, Zhang Che did not reject her outright, but when the two of them arrived in front of the 4th floor classroom together, Zhang Che was surprised to find that she somehow knew this classroom had once belonged to the class of the girl from old dorm 614. Looking proud of herself, the school beauty said the dorm supervisor had told her personally that there were 2 places in this school that absolutely could not be touched: the abandoned old dorm building and classroom 406 on the 4th floor. Zhang Che immediately got annoyed. The guy had taken his magazine and still said nothing useful. After Zhang Che pushed open the classroom door, he glanced at the system prompt, did not overthink it, and walked straight inside. To his surprise, the classroom was packed with students, and none of them had gone to join the activity the principal had arranged. The teacher on the podium slowly told both of them to return to their seats, and the school beauty actually obeyed like an obedient honor student. Zhang Che was just starting to feel that something was off when Xiaoman warned him that the school beauty had already been mentally controlled. Worse still, the entire scene Zhang Che was looking at was also an illusion. The only reason he himself had not fallen for it was because his mental strength was too high. And right then, in the second-to-last row by the window, Zhang Che found the real target of this mission, Zu Xiaoyu, as he quietly stayed in place and kept watching what was happening. He noticed that no matter what question the teacher asked, Zu Xiaoyu would always be the first to stand up and answer. At that moment, Zhang Che finally began to suspect that the true theme of this challenge was a teacher-student affair. But just then, Teacher Gu suddenly made his move. All the students in the classroom transformed back into eerie creatures at the same time and turned toward Zhang Che, and the school beauty. Zhang Che casually swung his scissors and instantly cut down the ones lunging at him. And as those eerie creatures rushed toward the school beauty, she suddenly broke free from the mental control. Then she cut down every eerie creature charging at her. Right after that, she rushed over to Zhang Che and told him that they needed to escape first and figure things out later. But Teacher Gu only let out a cold laugh, and the aura pouring off him made both Zhang Che and the school beauty feel their hearts drop, because he was clearly a D-rank eerie being. Zhang Che was just about to call Xiaoman out to deal with it, but before he could, the school beauty stabbed him in the back. She even threw out one line, "Better that I betray the world than let the world betray me." Then she swung one long leg and kicked Zhang Che straight into the middle of the eerie creatures. After that, she ran for the classroom door without looking back once. Zhang Che could only feel speechless. He had been thinking of how to use the school beauty, while she had never planned on sparing him either. But after the school beauty escaped from the classroom, waiting for her outside was the homeroom teacher holding a chainsaw. Back inside the classroom, Teacher Gu had already walked slowly up to Zhang Che, and just as he was about to finish him off, Zhang Che suddenly pulled out a butterfly hairpin. Teacher Gu's expression changed on the spot, and he immediately demanded to know why Zhang Che had Xiaoyu's hairpin. Of course, Zhang Che had no intention of saying it came from the urn, so instead he stared at Teacher Gu and said in a certain tone that this whole cat and mouse event had been arranged by Teacher Gu from the start, and that Zu Xiaoyu's twins were his children too. Looking at the reaction on Teacher Gu's face, Zhang Che immediately knew he had guessed right. The reason Teacher Gu's name had been deliberately scratched out of the clues was because Zu Xiaoyu had still been trying to protect his reputation until the very end. So Zhang Che fixed his eyes on Teacher Gu and coldly asked whether he really planned to hide like a coward forever and never go save Zu Xiaoyu, even though she had borne every last bit of it alone. But right then, Zhang Che suddenly remembered that clue: unfinished regret. If all of this had really been Zu Xiaoyu's choice, and if Teacher Gu had loved her too, then where exactly did that regret come from? Teacher Gu's face twisted with rage as he snarled at Zhang Che, asking whether he really thought he had seen through everything. Seeing Teacher Gu charge straight at him, Zhang Che shouted on the spot, "Xiaoman!" In the very next second, Xiaoman raised one long leg and slammed Teacher Gu with a vicious flying kick. The impact blasted him straight into the podium desk, a full D-rank eerie being. And yet from that single kick from Xiaoman, his life was already hanging by a thread. Then, to Zhang Che's surprise, Teacher Gu showed a strangely relieved expression and muttered, "I've done all I could." Zhang Che was left completely stunned. What was this script? Wasn't this supposed to be the classic deadbeat scumbag finally regretting everything before dying? At the same time, the dismissal bell rang. The cat and mouse event was officially over, but Zhang Che had no intention of stopping. Instead, he decided to head back to the old dorm and get to the bottom of it. Meanwhile, on the school beauty side, the moment she rushed out of the classroom, she ran straight into the homeroom teacher holding a chainsaw, which forced her to burn her hidden trump card, a substitute doll, and that had been her last resurrection chance. Even so, she still was not willing to quit because she wanted the Eerie challenge reward too badly, so she chose to head to the old dorm as well. Naturally, that led to her running straight into Zhang Che, but the school beauty was still full of confidence because she was convinced that after facing a D-rank Eerie being, Zhang Che had definitely already used up his own resurrection chance. So she even tried to negotiate, saying she did not need the Eerie reward anymore, as long as she could clear the mission and survive. But in the very next second, her pupils contracted violently because in Zhang Che's hand was a still beating heart. Her face filled with disbelief. Zhang Che only gave her one cold line: "Talk less in your next life." Then, without the slightest hesitation, he crushed the heart in his hand. The instant the school beauty died, the ghost spirit inside her tried to flee. Zhang Che chased it down and smashed his fist straight into its face. The blow sent it crashing deep into the wall of the dorm building. Desperate to survive, the ghost spirit begged for mercy and offered to sign a slave contract with Zhang Che. But the only answer it got was Zhang Che pulling out those bright red scissors. Then Zhang Che stabbed it mercilessly for a full 2.5 minutes. After that, Zhang Che had originally planned to go save the others in the dorm, but to his surprise, that ghost spirit had actually dropped loot. And not just any loot. It was a main weapon with stat bonuses attached. Zhang Che was very pleased by that. After all, a handsome guy like him could not go around stabbing everything with scissors forever. Not long after that, inside old dorm room 614, Zu Xiaoyu sat there folding paper cranes one by one. At the same time, she asked Zhang Che whether he had already killed Teacher Gu. Zhang Che did not hide it. He admitted it directly, and even added that Teacher Gu was dead for good. Zu Xiaoyu fell silent for a moment, then asked Zhang Che whether he truly had no interest in hearing her story. Zhang Che answered that he did not. "You gave up everything for him. You cursed the whole school just to fulfill that love. At first, I thought this was some tragic love story, but now it looks like the truth isn't that simple." And that was exactly where the lingering sense of wrongness in Zhang Che's mind had come from. The truth was that Zu Xiaoyu and Teacher Gu had never actually been in love. 1,000 tongues make truth. Unfinished regret. All of it had been resentment told entirely through Zu Xiaoyu's own perspective. In her version of the story, a student and a teacher had fallen in love, only to be judged and scorned by everyone around them. Then, after she became pregnant with the teacher's child, she was tricked by him into killing her own children with her own hands. In the end, she went mad and cursed the entire school. That was the story Zu Xiaoyu wanted everyone to hear. But the real truth was that Teacher Gu had never loved Zu Xiaoyu at all. From beginning to end, it had all been nothing more than Zu Xiaoyu's one-sided obsession. In reality, the true story was much simpler. Teacher Gu was young and handsome, and Zu Xiaoyu had fallen hopelessly in love with him. Then, with her outstanding grades, she quickly earned Teacher Gu's attention and approval. But Zu Xiaoyu misunderstood that approval as romantic love. She even went so far as to use extreme methods just to get pregnant with Teacher Gu's child. And when Teacher Gu still refused to be with her, she convinced herself that the real reason had to be the judgmental looks from their classmates. But the reason Teacher Gu rejected her was never just about the teacher-student relationship. It was also because Zu Xiaoyu's way of handling things had already crossed into obsession and madness. Hearing that, Zu Xiaoyu completely broke down. She choked out that she had always believed that if she had his child, then maybe he would finally look at her differently. Those children were supposed to be hers and Teacher Gu's, and yet, in order to protect his reputation, she had killed them with her own hands. She said she loved him, but at the same time, she hated him too. If Teacher Gu did not want anyone to know about it, then she would just make sure everyone who knew would shut their mouths forever. But now that Teacher Gu was dead, all of it felt meaningless. After hearing that, Zhang Che only let out a quiet sigh. There's nothing wrong with a girl wanting a love that shakes the world, but why turn into a complete love brain over it? As he said that, Zhang Chi took out the butterfly hairpin and told Zu Xiaoyu that Teacher Gu had asked him to pass it on to her before he died. He also told her that even though Teacher Gu had placed a curse on her, he had still been secretly protecting her all this time. Even this so-called hide-and-seek event had really been his way of protecting that secret, and none of that was because of love. It was because she had once been the student he was most proud of. He did not want that ugly truth exposed, and he did not want her to spend forever trapped inside everyone's gossip. Those words seemed to hit the deepest part of Zu Xiaoyu heart. And after she took the butterfly hairpin from Zhang Che's hand, her body slowly turned into butterflies and drifted away into nothing. Without Teacher Gu, being alive doesn't mean much anymore. And at that exact moment, Zhang Che's challenge quest was finally complete. After Zhang Che cleared the Eerie challenge quest, the school looked completely unchanged on the surface. But even so, nobody still dared to mention Zu Xiaoyu, which made one thing obvious. The curse Zu Xiaoyu had placed on Broken Bones High School had never truly disappeared. That meant Zhang Che still had to sit through the final exam. But the second he pulled out that pen, it was only natural that he instantly took first place in the entire class. At the same time, he also received the rewards for clearing the mission. Zhang Che not only earned a double SS rating, but also got a D rank forbidden item called the Sin Mask, plus a notebook that could answer practically any question. Zhang Che handed that notebook straight to Xiaoman, because he had already promised he would help her find her beautiful head. That made Xiaoman's favorability toward him shoot up even faster, because if Zhang Che saved that notebook for a future Eerie challenge, it would basically hand him the full strategy guide and all the clues in advance. So Xiaoman also warned Zhang Che not to overuse that D-rank mask, because the moment he put it on, he would slip into a dark persona. And once that happened, his main personality would no longer be in control of his actions. Right after that, Zhang Chi's figure slowly vanished from the prison of all heavens. Then he returned to the real world. The instant he got back, Spinach Head came running over with tears and snot everywhere and threw himself onto Zhang Che. But Zhang Che did not even have time to deal with him, because the bloodstained classroom in front of him had already left him staring blankly in shock. The bureau uncle only smiled and casually said that the school had been invaded by Eerie entities the previous night, but the situation had already been handled. Then he motioned for Zhang Che to follow him. After all, Zhang Che had been the last challenger to return from the Eerie world. Everyone else was already waiting in the library. Once Zhang Che and the others walked in, the bureau uncle cleared his throat and announced that 12 challengers had entered the Eerie world this time, and 4 had died, including the school beauty Yi Qingyao. That revelation instantly threw everyone into disbelief, because Yi Qingyao was someone who had contracted a ghost spirit. So they immediately started pressing Zhang Che for answers, since he had shared the same scenario as her and had to know how she died. But the uncle shot them a cold look and told them to stop talking. Once you entered the Eerie world, life and death were fate, and fortune was left to heaven. Right then, the blindfolded older sister type handed the uncle something that looked like a notebook, and that item could roughly record how challengers had performed in the Eerie world. Hearing that, Zhang Che's heart instantly tightened. There was no way everything between him and the school beauty had been recorded too. right? But Xiaoman immediately told him there was no chance of that. She had already censored him on purpose, and she had even switched his outfit into women's clothes, so nobody would ever recognize him. Zhang Che could only cover his face in speechless disbelief and silently pray that the Yi family would never find out. At that point, the uncle began reading out everyone's results from the Eerie world. Spinach Head classmate Wang Difa had lasted 2 full days. 2 other people had also lasted that long. As for the rest, they had lasted 3 days, cleared the main quest, and all received D rank evaluations. Among them, the white-haired Zhu Yi had also cleared an extra challenge quest, which earned him an A rank evaluation. Whitehair instantly got smug beyond belief. He even started shouting for everyone to introduce him to a girlfriend. But the moment the uncle announced that Zhang Che had received an SS rating, the whole library went dead silent for several full seconds. Then everyone turned toward Zhang Che with their mouths hanging open in shock. Even white-haired Zhu Yi, who had been showing off non-stop a second ago, suddenly did not dare say another word. But right then, the library doors were violently kicked open. The person who stormed and roared out a single question: who killed his daughter? And the man standing there with the aura of an underworld boss was none other than Yi Qingyao's father, Yi Changqing. He was absolutely certain that the one who killed his daughter was hiding somewhere among these challengers. In the very next second, Yi Changqing directly fused with the ghost spirit inside him. Then he made his move against Zhang Che and the others without hesitation. But right then, a long halberd came crashing down and instantly wiped out the blood hand. The blindfolded woman coldly demanded to know what exactly Yi Changqing thought he was doing. Yi Changqing completely snapped on the spot, roaring that his daughter Yahello was dead. So of course, he was going to take revenge. The others hurried to deny everything, because their ghost power had not even reached 20. So there was no way they could have beaten someone like Yi Qingyao, who had a contracted ghost spirit. Of course, Zhang Che was the one exception, since his ghost power had already reached 160. Xiaoman also warned Zhang Che at that moment that the ghost spirit inside Yi Changqing was C rank, and with Zhang Che's current strength, a direct frontal clash would end badly. Fortunately, the bureau uncle was still there, so the whole farce did not drag on for long. After all, even though the Yi family was one of Tianqing City's 3 great Eerie clans, they still did not dare openly challenge the Bureau of the Occult. In the end, Yi Changqing could only leave with resentment and fury burning in his chest. Once all the scores had finally been recorded, Zhang Che and the others were free to head home. At the same time, the uncle reminded them that tomorrow they could go to the Bureau to claim an extra reward of 500,000, as well as a ghost ring. Hearing that instantly lit everyone up, because even setting aside the cash, a ghost ring alone was worth a full million. A ghost ring was essentially a ring embedded with a ghost stone, allowing the wearer to enter the Eerie world whenever they wanted. But right then, Zhang Che suddenly froze. His sister had come to pick him up, and the heavy worry in her eyes finally started to ease. Even so, the very next second, she still started scolding him, because in her eyes, she did not care at all how much prize money Zhang Che might earn from clearing the Eerie world. The only thing she had ever wanted was for Zhang Che to come back safe. But just then, Zhu Ji suddenly jumped into the situation. Acting completely familiar, he introduced himself to Zhang Che's sister as Zhang Che's brother. He even shamelessly said he wanted to tag along and mooch a meal at Zhang Che's place. What surprised Zhang Che was that the moment his sister heard the surname Zhug, she immediately smiled and agreed. And when she stepped away to buy groceries, Zhang Che finally dropped the casual act and seriously asked Zhu Ji what his real motive was. Only then did Zhu Yi tell him the truth. He really had come to help, because the Yi family was now insisting that Yi Qingyao had been murdered. In that same scenario, only 3 people made it back alive, and Zhang Che was the only one who completed the challenge quest. Unlike the main quest, the more people who clear a challenge quest, the smaller each person's final reward becomes. So if someone wants to take the whole prize for themselves, killing or getting killed is nothing unusual. That was exactly why the Yi family locking Zhang Che in as the prime suspect made perfect sense. Even so, Zhang Che still didn't trust Zhu Yi. What if he had been sent by the Yi family to fish for information? At the same time, Xiaoman also told Zhang Che that Zhu Ji didn't have a contracted ghost spirit on him. Right then, Zhang Che's older sister came back from grocery shopping. Watching the two of them getting along so naturally, Zhang Che found it even stranger. His sister was not some naive sweetheart who would be this warm to a total stranger. By the next day, Zhang Che and Zhu Ji headed to the Bureau of the Occult to collect their rewards. On the way, Zhu Yi asked Zhang Che again whether he wanted to join the Bureau. Once he was in, no matter how powerful the Yi family was, they would not be able to touch him. Zhang Che did feel a little tempted, but joining the Bureau meant taking on the duty of protecting the country and its people. They were the ones who stood in front of everyone else, the giants who shielded the world. They were admirable. They were honorable. But to Zhang Che, saving the world still felt way too far off. All he wanted right now was to enter the Eerie world, keep getting stronger, and protect the people he wanted to protect. But on the way to the bureau, Zhang Che suddenly ran into members of the Yi family questioning his classmate Yang Ziyang. Their glance in that direction was quickly noticed by one of the Yi family's bodyguards. The man walked straight over to Zhang Che and introduced himself as Si Buril. Then he informed him that the head of the Yi family wanted Zhang Che to come to the Yi residence. Zhang Che obviously knew who he was dealing with, but on the surface, he played dumb and refused on the grounds that he did not accept invitations from strangers. Zhu Yi immediately chimed in from the side, saying this guy might be a scammer trying to lure them away and harvest their kidneys. Then he flat out started shouting in the street that they were being kidnapped. In an instant, a crowd of curious onlookers gathered around them. Zhu Yi took advantage of the chaos, grabbed Zhang Che, and bolted. By the time they ran all the way into the Bureau of the Occult, Zhu Yi was actually asking Zhang Che for credit. Zhang Che was so annoyed that he punched him on the spot. Running like that only made him look even more suspicious, didn't it? Just then, a figure was suddenly thrown out from inside. As the man struggled up, he shouted that he refused to join the Bureau of the Occult. A second later, he was shot in the head on the spot. Seeing that gruesome end, both Zhang Che and Zhu Ji felt their hearts tighten. The blindfolded woman who pulled the trigger merely gestured calmly for them to follow her and collect their reward money. She had clearly noticed the fear in both of them, so she told them there was nothing to worry about. The man just now had merely been obstructing official business. The Bureau of the Occult never forces anyone to join. As she walked, she casually told Zhang Che and Zhu Ji to give her their bank account numbers. After they received their ghost rings, the blindfolded woman reminded them that the rings they had now could only open F rank to D rank instances. Once D rank instances stopped being enough for them, they could come back to the Bureau of the Occult and upgrade their ghost rings. And if anyone was caught reselling one, they would be sewing uniforms for the rest of their life. Right after that, the blindfolded woman pulled out a contract and told Zhang Che and Zhu Ji to sign their names. Once they signed it, they would officially become members of the Bureau. The atmosphere instantly went dead silent. Zhang Che tried to push back one more time, but the blindfolded woman shut him down without hesitation. But by then, Zhang Che had already realized something was off. If the Bureau of the Occult really forced people to join, the internet would have exploded with outrage a long time ago. From the very beginning, that woman had been feeding them one message, deliberately or not. If they refused to join the Bureau, they would die. And once Bureau Uncle showed up, everything turned out exactly the way Zhang Che had guessed. The whole thing had just been part of the blindfolded woman's setup. Even though Bureau Uncle and the others had rehearsed the whole act for a long time, in the end, it was basically just a prank on Zhang Che and Zhu Jie. After that, Bureau Uncle finally asked them seriously whether they wanted to join the Bureau of the Occult. They could not offer them money. They could not offer them power, but they could promise them one thing. It would be the greatest honor of their lives. In the end, Zhang Che still turned them down. After that, he planned to go pick up his older sister from work, but all of a sudden, his expression changed because he sensed an eerie presence, and it was coming from the direction where his sister worked. When Zhang Che sprinted all the way to the building where she worked, he looked up and froze, unable to say a single word. On top of that 100-meter-tall building stood two figures. One of them was an Eerie being dressed like a clown, and the other figure, the one being held by that clown, was Zhang Che's older sister. With a shrill, mocking laugh, the clown slowly let go of his hand. The next second, Zhang Che's sister plummeted from the top of the building. Zhang Che's face twisted in terror as he screamed for it to stop, but it was already too late. She hit the ground and was smashed to pieces. Zhang Che stared blankly at the scene, his mind completely empty. But at that moment, Xiao Man's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. She told him that was not his sister at all. It was only a mental illusion. She told him to focus and snap out of it immediately. As for Zhu Yi, who had also fallen into the illusion, Zhang Che used a much simpler method to wake him up. One hard slap across the face. The moment Zhu Yi came to, he immediately signaled Zhang Che to run, his face full of fear. That eerie being that looked like a clown was Infinite Terror, a monster whose strength was already dangerously close to C rank. Zhang Che did not care whether it was Infinite Terror or anything else, and there was no time to wait for the bureau to arrive. There was no way he was going to gamble with his sister's life. Seeing that Zhang Che would not listen, Zhu Yi immediately pulled out a talisman. Then he shoved it straight into his mouth, and right after that, he took off after Zhang Che. At the same time, the Bureau of the Occult had already arrived outside the building. Besides sealing off the entire tower to stop Infinite Terror from escaping again, they had also been ordered to protect Zhang Che and Zhu Ji. Meanwhile, inside the shopping complex, Zhang Che kept calling out his sister Zhang Wan's name again and again. The floor was covered in blood, yet there was not a single person in sight. The reason Xiao Man did not stop Zhang Che from taking the risk was simple. After everything they had been through together, she already understood just how important his sister was to him. Just then, a panting Zhu Yi finally caught up to Zhang Che and used a talisman to help block the mental attacks hitting him. Zhang Che did not want Zhu Yi risking his life with him, so he told him to leave now, but Zhu Yi refused without hesitation. The Zhu family had always been famous for strategy and brains, Wasn't this just infinite terror? With the two of them together, this pair of crouching dragon and young phoenix was not about to be stopped by something like that. But at that exact moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from behind them. Zhang Che spun around and instantly recognized who it was. She was his sister's co-worker and one of her closest friends. She was also Sister's son, the woman who used to take him out, watch movies with him, and buy him snacks when he was little. But now, Sister's son could no longer recognize Zhang Che and lunged straight at him. Zhu Yi reacted instantly and shoved Zhang Che out of the way. Right after that, Xiaoman told Zhang Che that the woman in front of him had already become a ghost slave. Once someone turned into a ghost slave, their self-awareness would be trapped inside their body forever, reduced to a servant of the Eerie world, with no way to break the curse. Zhang Che tightened his grip on the blood-red longsword. He knew better than anyone that the longer he hesitated, the more danger his sister would be in. When Sister's son charged at him again, Zhang Che could only whisper a silent apology to her in his heart. The next second, he swung the long blade without hesitation and severed her arms and legs. Xiaoman immediately reminded him that ghost slaves still retain their sense of pain, so the best thing to do was end her life at once. Hearing that, Zhang Che slowly raised the sword and then drove it straight into her heart with all his strength. At the instant death came for her, Sister Sun's remaining consciousness slowly returned, and when she saw that it was Zhang Che, there was no hatred in her eyes at all, only gratitude, as she used the last of her strength to leave behind one sentence. His sister was in the movie theater. The moment he learned his sister was in the theater, Zhang Che told Zhu Ji to stay outside. If she somehow made it out, someone had to be there to take her away. Zhu Yi did not want Zhang Che going in alone, but faced with Zhang Che's unshakable resolve, he ultimately had no choice but to listen. At the same time, outside the building, a spatial barrier formed from soul-sealing incense had already locked down the entire tower. But because the space was still unstable, the Bureau would have to wait another 5 minutes before they could break in. Even though they were worried about Zhang Che and Zhu Ji, they still chose to trust Zhang Che as a contractor of a taboo ghost spirit. Inside the mall, Zhang Che searched theater after theater, but still could not find any trace of his sister. Then suddenly, the giant screen in front of him lit up. The clown on the screen even greeted Zhang Che with a wave, but that face crawling with maggots made Zhang Che sick to his stomach. Then, in the very next moment, the clown put on a grotesque face-changing act and transformed into the exact appearance of Zhang Che's sister. Zhang Che's pupils shrank violently. Xiaoman immediately shouted in his mind for him to calm down. It was all an illusion. He could not fall for the clown's trick. His sister had to still be alive. Thanks to Xiaoman's warning, Zhang Che snapped back to his senses in an instant. Then he drove his fist forward and smashed the giant screen to pieces. When he was little, Zhang Che had loved playing ghost and seek games. No matter where he hid, his sister could always find him right away. And this time, he would be the one to find his sister. At the same time, outside the mall, not everyone had turned into ghost slaves, but some of them had already had their minds taken over. Those controlled civilians ended up blocking Bureau Uncle and the others from advancing. Bureau Uncle made the call on the spot. He would stay behind and hold them off, while the blindfolded woman went in to find Zhang Che and Zhu Y. No matter what, nothing could be allowed to happen to them. Meanwhile, inside theater number 9, a huge crowd of audience members was packed into the seats, and Zhang Che's older sister, Zhang Wan, was among them. Zhang Qi's refusal to fall for the trap had clearly left the clown furious, so he shifted his attention to a mother and her child. He wanted to turn that little boy into a ghost slave. A mother's love kicked in instantly, and she begged him to take her instead of her son. But rather than moving the clown, that motherly devotion only made him even more excited. With a casual slash, he cut off the arm that had been holding the boy. Then, wearing a twisted grin, he slowly walked toward the child. But right then, the theater doors were kicked open. Zhang Che stepped inside with murder in his eyes. The clown let out a sharp, delighted laugh when he saw him. In the next second, his body twisted into a tornado and lunged straight at Zhang Che. But he did not actually care whether Zhang Che dodged or not. What he really wanted was to force Zhang Che into a game. At the same time, deeper inside the theater, a man in black robes suddenly appeared. The moment Zhang Wan saw him, she rushed forward and shielded the mother and son behind her. But the black-robed man calmly claimed that no one else would be hurt from this point on. Then he began explaining to everyone what an Eerie challenger was and what ordinary humans were. In his telling, challengers were the ones who got first pick of everything this world had to offer. They enjoyed all kinds of privilege and special treatment. Meanwhile, the people at the very bottom could not even count on basic survival. He said he was one of those ordinary people too, and that he had personally watched his own sister get abused and tortured by 3 so-called A-rank challengers. And in the end, those 3 walked away without suffering even the slightest punishment, simply because they were challengers. Everyone kept talking about how the Eerie world was rotten, but no one ever mentioned just how filthy their own world was. That was why the black-robed man wanted to tear the mask off challengers and expose what they really were. And the game he prepared for Zhang Che was a brutal two-choice ultimatum. The first option was for Zhang Che to kill everyone in the theater. Without fear as a source, the clown's power would begin to decline without limit. At that point, Zhang Che would not only be able to leave safely with his sister, he could also kill the clown, receive praise from the Bureau of the Occult, and not even be held accountable for the deaths. The second option was for Zhang Che to die in everyone else's place, trading his one life for the lives of everyone in the room. That round of moral blackmail worked like gasoline on fire. The crowd instantly turned on Zhang Che and started shouting for him to die. The black-robed man assumed his goal had already been achieved, but at that moment, Zhang Wan suddenly stood up and shouted for everyone not to fall for it. She admitted that human nature often could not stand up to scrutiny. Even so, she said, that still did not mean everyone should be condemned because of the evil of a few. Everyone knew how much the Bureau of the Occult had sacrificed to protect ordinary people, and protecting the weak had never been some obligation they were born owing the world. In the very next second, Zhang Wan pulled out a knife and declared with absolute resolve that if they intended to use her to threaten her little brother, then she would kill herself without hesitation first, so the two of them would choose neither of those options. The instant those words fell, Zhang Che began merging with Xiao Man. Then he raised the blood-red longsword and went straight for the clown. In the clash that followed, Zhang Che hacked off one of the clown's arms. He even carved a chunk of flesh right off the clown's face. Zhang Che himself was not injured, but it still would not be accurate to say he had the upper hand. The clown could absorb the fear of the people around him and turn it into power. That meant not only was his severed arm slowly regenerating, but his strength had also climbed all the way to C rank. On Zhang Che's side, though, his body was already nearing its limit, and he could no longer keep drawing heavily on Xiao Man's power. Seeing that, Xiao Man urged Zhang Che to run. But with his sister still not rescued, there was no way Zhang Che would give up now. He only told Xiao Man one thing. When it was time to boost his ghost power again, push it all the way to the limit. Just as Zhang Che was about to make his next move, Zhu Yi suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Then he hurled a sneaker straight at the clown. It slammed hard into the clown's face without missing by an inch. The clown froze on the spot, completely dumbfounded. A second later, endless rage exploded out of him. But before he could make his next move, the sneaker in his hand suddenly exploded. Blue flames instantly burst across the clown's body, burning him as he let out a shrill scream. Zhang Che seized the opening and rushed straight at him. Then he drove his sword in with brutal force. The clown's face twisted instantly. His scream rang through the entire building. Clutching behind himself, the clown screamed that Zhang Che was a complete beast, totally broken on the spot. He started cursing Zhang Che like a madman, but in the very next moment, Zhu Yi struck again and stabbed him one more time. That second hit finished the job for good. The clown's face went deathly pale as he collapsed to the floor in agony. Looking at those two living devils behind him, Zhang Che and Zhu Yi did not hold back in the slightest. They grabbed their swords and stabbed the clown over and over for a full 2.5 minutes. By the time the blindfolded woman finally found them, the scene in front of her made the two of them look even more terrifying than the eerie beings themselves. Even she froze where she stood. After Zhang Che finally killed Infinite Terror, the clown, he ended up bedridden for 3 full days before waking up, all because he had forced his ghost power past its limit. Once he woke up, Bureau Uncle and the others came to visit him. Bureau Uncle then introduced the black-haired man standing beside him. He was Yan Yibing, the captain of Squad 3033, but before the man could even speak, Zhang Che cut him off and made it clear that he had no intention of joining the Bureau of the Occult. Then he found out Yan Yibing had actually come to deliver his bonus money. Zhang Che's whole expression changed on the spot, and he immediately said that more than $1 million was fine, but anything less was not acceptable. After that, Zhang Che asked them what exactly the Society of Light was. From Yan Yibing's explanation, he learned that the Society of Light was a cult organization that frequently caused eerie invasion incidents and threw the world into chaos. And the one who had targeted Zhang Wan this time was Void, the 16th seat among the Society of Light's 24 deacons. In fact, 2 deacons had appeared during this incident, and the other one had been held back by Yan Yibing himself. More importantly, both of them had come for Zhang Che. More precisely, they had come for the ghost spirit inside him. Meanwhile, outside Zhang Che's hospital room, Zhang Wan had overheard everything. She could not help showing worry in her eyes for her younger brother. Inside the room, after hearing that the Bureau could protect his family and block the Yi family from spying on them, Zhang Che asked what the price was. Did that mean joining the Bureau of the Occult? What Zhang Che did not know was that the Yi family had already joined the Society of Light in order to get revenge. They had even asked Void, the 16th seed, to capture Jiang Wan, and they were willing to do absolutely anything to make it happen. Void agreed. But because their broader plan was at a critical stage, nothing could be allowed to go wrong. Once the time was right, avenging his daughter would be easy. Hearing Zhang Che's question, Yan Yibing only shook his head slightly. There were countless people in this world who wanted to join the Bureau of the Occult, but after layers and layers of selection, the number who actually made it in was vanishingly small. The reason so many people desperately wanted in was because the Bureau provided a special forbidden item that could protect their families. At that point, Yan Yibing handed Zhang Che an application form. He told him there would be an Eerie challenge the next day to qualify for Bureau selection, and whether he joined or not was entirely up to him. As soon as they stepped out after saying that, they happened to run into Zhang Che's older sister. The encounter instantly made Zhang Wan feel awkward. Yan Yibing simply gave her a slight nod before leaving with the others. In truth, whether Zhang Che joined the Bureau or not was basically just one word from Yan Yibing. And even that forbidden item meant to protect family members had been bought with Yan Yibing's own money. So everything he had just said was really just a setup to reel Zhang Che in. And Zhang Che had obviously taken the bait. Once he saw that even his sister did not object, he became even more tempted. In fact, Zhang Wan understood it too. Her little brother was ultimately going to walk the same road their parents once had. By the next day, Zhang Che and Zhu Ji arrived at the Bureau of the Occult as promised. The blindfolded woman immediately asked them what rank they were. Zhang Che and Zhu Yi assumed she meant game rank, so one answered king while the other answered gold. The blindfolded woman punched each of them on the spot and said she was asking about ghost power, not gaming rank. Naturally, both Zhang Che and Zhu Ji chose to keep their actual ghost power level secret. The blindfolded woman looked completely speechless and decided not to press the issue. Instead, she reminded them that the people taking part in this challenge would no longer be mostly students. In other words, all kinds of people would be there this time, including murderers. Not long after that, inside a gloomy forest, Zhang Che officially entered a brand new Eerie challenge. As for Zhu Yi, who kept clinging to him like glue, Zhang Che opened with a kick and sent him flying. Otherwise, if Zhu Yi kept sticking to him like that, everyone else was going to start wondering whether Zhang Che's taste in men was a little too specific. But right then, both the main quest and the challenge quest were suddenly revealed at the same time. Before Zhang Che could even process it, someone in the crowd was already shouting that he had done simulation training for this exact scenario before. The moment those words came out, people swarmed toward him like he was their lifeline. In no time, they had practically pushed him into the role of team leader for the whole group. Seeing that, Zhu Ji turned to Zhang Che and asked if they should just tag along and coast, since that guy was one of the blessed. A so-called blessed one was someone who, out of countless challenges, somehow landed with perfect accuracy in an instance they were best at and had even practiced in a real simulation. Zhang Che looked completely unimpressed and directly asked Xiao Man if she knew anything about Corpse Ridge Village. But Xiao Man, being a pampered rich girl through and through, obviously had no clue what kind of godforsaken place that was. Helpless, Zhang Che changed the subject and asked whether she had used that notebook to figure out where her head was. The moment that came up, Xiao Man immediately started fumbling over her words. Turns out she had messed up the question. What she had asked was where her head was in the Eerie world, and the notebook's answer had been that her head was not in the Eerie world at all. If she had asked without adding the Eerie world condition, she probably would have gotten the real answer. Even so, at least one thing was confirmed. Xiao Man's head was currently somewhere in the real world. Meanwhile, back at Zhang Che's home, Zhang Wan had also found the letter Zhang Che had left for her. But before she could think much about it, the doorbell suddenly rang. The moment she opened the door, one old man immediately introduced himself as the president of Qing University. But before he could finish, another old man squeezed his way in and loudly declared that he was the president of Qing University. The two bickered non-stop. But at the same time, both of them kept trying to cozy up to Zhang Wan. Their purpose could not have been more obvious. They were here to recruit Zhang Che into their school. To win him over, they even threw out one outrageous offer after another. At one point, the two of them nearly started fighting on the spot, but the problem was that Zhang Wan had no authority to decide which school Zhang Che would attend. Thankfully, Yan Yibing showed up at the critical moment and saved her from being overwhelmed. Watching all three sides fight to claim her brother, Zhang Wan finally understood just how exceptional Zhang Che really was. After all, not just anyone could make Qing University, Qing University, and even the Bureau of the Occult personally come fight over them. Back in the Eerie world, two separate paths soon appeared ahead of everyone. Zhang Zihao, the temporary team leader, chose the path on the right without hesitation, and the others all decided to trust him. But Zhang Che had system guidance, so he did not follow the main group. Instead, he picked the path on the left by himself. That decision immediately made everyone else unhappy. Zhang Zihao, however, did not care at all. In his eyes, it was better for some reckless hothead who would not listen to just leave on his own. As for Zhu Yi, he still chose to follow Zhang Che. Once the two of them passed through that silk-like barrier, a gloomy village came into view before Zhang Che's eyes. Zhu Yi's eyes lit up instantly. He really had not expected Zhang Che to pick the right path, but just then, a child suddenly caught Zhang Che's attention. At the same time, a side quest popped up. catch the ducks. The child also turned to look at Zhang Che and Zhu Ji. After learning they only needed to catch one duck, Zhang Che asked why the kid's parents had not helped him do it. The child just grinned and casually said they were dead and that they had died horribly. Then, without warning, he shoved Zhang Che and Zhu Ji straight into the river. Zhang Che was instantly furious, not even because of the push, but because the river was absolutely filthy. He did not even bother wondering why the ducks had absurdly muscular bodies. He just grabbed one and handed it over to the child. The moment the side quest cleared, Zhang Che was rewarded with 10 points of ghost power. He also got a windproof lighter. Zhu Ji could not help complaining that the reward was ridiculously stingy. What was he even supposed to do with some cheap lighter? But right then, they suddenly realized the child had disappeared. Xiaoman immediately warned Zhang Che that the duck from earlier had felt wrong. It had the aura of a living human on it. In other words, that duck had most likely been transformed from an actual person. That made Zhang Che wonder whether challengers who died here turned straight into ducks. What he did not know was that the child was hiding behind the trees nearby, staring blankly at them. Under his breath, the child kept muttering that so many ducks had arrived. Zhang Che, however, noticed none of that and had already entered Corpse Ridge Village with Zhu Ji. At that moment, Zhu Ji suddenly spotted an old well and heard what sounded like a girl's voice coming from inside it. But in the very next second, strands of hair burst up from the well and wrapped around his head. Then they started dragging him straight down into the well. Zhang Che reacted instantly, slashing out with his sword and cutting those strands apart. At the same time, the system gave him a prompt. The girl in the well had once been a breathtaking beauty, but after discovering the village's secret, she had been hated by the entire village and personally thrown into the well by the village chief. Zhang Che instantly realized that the girl in the well was most likely a key NPC in this instance, so without the slightest hesitation, he jumped straight in. The sight of that left Zhu Yi standing at the well, completely stunned. But once Zhang Che got down there, he discovered that the space inside the well was not nearly as cramped as he had imagined. At that moment, a figure slowly rose from the water, and when that figure finally stood up, even though her body was covered in boils and sores, traces of the breathtaking beauty she once had still lingered beneath it all. Zhang Che walked toward her at an unhurried pace, then launched right back into his signature cheesy flirting. One of his lines was, "This monk came all the way from the Great Tang, not to seek scriptures, but to marry you." And while saying that, he even reached out and touched the female ghost's face. But unlike Xiaoli before her, this female ghost did not blush in the slightest. If anything, she just thought Zhang Che was a complete idiot. The next second, countless strands of hair shot out and wrapped Zhang Che up in midair, trying to strangle him to death. But soon, the female ghost realized that no matter how much force she used, Zhang Che was completely unharmed. Zhang Che let out a small laugh, then burst his strength outward and shattered every strand of hair binding him. If the soft approach did not work, then he would do it the hard way. Meanwhile, Zhu Yi, who was waiting above at the mouth of the well, suddenly heard the female ghost cursing from below in a voice full of anger and humiliation. About a minute later, when Zhang Che climbed back out, Zhu Yi gave him a weird look and asked if that had not been way too fast. Before Zhang Che could explain, Zhang Zihao's group stumbled into the village covered in injuries, and unsurprisingly, they were missing a few people. Seeing that, Zhu Ji could not help recalling what Zhang Che had said earlier. The more people who completed the challenge quest, the less reward each person got. Was Zhang Zihao really planning to carry everyone to victory? But just then, a horrifying chorus of ghostly wails suddenly rose from all directions. At the same time, the system issued a prompt. If they wanted to survive, they had to get inside a house within 3 minutes. Zhang Che did not even have time to marvel at how much this felt like Silent Hill, because he quickly realized that none of the nearby doors would open no matter what they tried. At the critical moment, Zhang Che pulled out the key. As soon as the door opened, Zhu Yi did not waste a second and rushed inside first. But the next instant, he seemed to see something absolutely terrifying. He actually slammed the door shut again from the inside. That move left Zhang Che outside the door completely speechless. But only 2.5 seconds later, Zhu Yi reopened it and yanked Zhang Che inside. Then he immediately dropped to the floor and apologized, saying he had been scared out of his mind by the figure that had suddenly appeared behind Zhang Che. Zhang Che let loose on him with a full lecture, but in the end, he still chose to let it go. But then, out of nowhere, Zhang Che's voice came from outside the house again. Zhu Yi instinctively moved to open the door, but when he stiffly turned his head to look at the Zhang Che behind him, his scalp went numb, because he could no longer tell which one was real. The Zhang Che inside then told him to take out the glowing item. One test would settle it. In truth, the thing that glowed was not Zhu Yi's shoe at all, but the bracelet in his hand. Once they confirmed which one was the real Zhang Che, Zhu Yi finally told him the name of that forbidden item. Do you believe in the light? After that, Zhang Che told Zhu Ji to put the bracelet away, but Zhu Ji was terrified of the dark and refused. Zhang Che did not argue. He just told him to look behind him. Outside the house, a whole crowd of eerie beings had already been drawn in by the glow. The moment he saw that, Zhu Yi obediently hid the bracelet away, then asked Zhang Che where exactly he had gotten that key from. Zhang Che told him the female ghost in the well had given it to him, but all she remembered now was that she had once swallowed the key. As for the village's secret mentioned in the system prompt, she had no memory of it at all. Next, Zhang Che asked Zhu Yi to keep track of how long the darkness lasted, although they had no idea where that inexplicable fox-like smell came from. Once Zhu Yi counted to 1800 seconds, the darkness receded just as expected. This result matched the time Zhang Che had recorded on his watch almost perfectly. However, when Zhang Che and Zhu Yi were getting ready to head outside, they found themselves completely surrounded by a crowd of people. Despite their large numbers, Zhang Che didn't care at all. A bunch of old, weak, and sick villagers who were merely F-rank ghosts were nothing to be afraid of. What caught him off guard was that their goal was actually to invite Zhang Che to their homes for a meal. They even started fighting each other over the chance. Some even went so far as to push forward their pretty daughters to tempt Zhang Che. Zhang Che originally planned to stand back and wait for them to decide among themselves, but they all turned to look at him in unison, asking whose house he wanted to go to. Zhang Che straightforwardly suggested holding a cooking contest. He would go to whoever cooked the best food. The Eerie villagers had almost agreed, but someone exposed Zhang Che's scheme on the spot. Zhang Che hadn't expected this group of Eerie beings to actually have brains, but toward this loudmouth who stood out, Zhang Che showed no mercy and delivered a vicious kick. Just as Zhang Che was preparing to continue the beatdown, the vice village chief stepped forward to smooth things over, smoothly telling everyone to calm down. He explained that inviting outsiders home for a meal had always been a tradition in Corpse Ridge Village. The moment those words were spoken, system prompts followed one after another. Zhang Che only took one glance before agreeing to the vice village chief's request. Then he and Zhu Yi followed the vice village chief toward his house. Along the way, Zhang Che couldn't help but wonder where Zhang Zihao and the others had disappeared to. Zhu Yi, however, suddenly panicked and signaled Zhang Che to look to the left. They saw a woman hanging up a sheet of human skin to dry, which meant that someone had completely exhausted their resurrection chances. Before long, Zhang Che and Zhu Ji arrived at the door of the vice village chief's house. A stunning, mature beauty walked out from inside at that moment. She wasn't the vice village chief's daughter, but his wife, Sumair. Her appearance was enough to make even Zhang Che and Zhu Ji feel a little jealous. The vice village chief instructed Sumair to take Zhang Che and Zhu Ji to rest and told her to prepare extra food. Hearing this, Sumair hooked her arm around Zhang Che's without ceremony. Under Zhu Yi's highly envious gaze, she led Zhang Che toward the guest room. Once inside, she told Zhang Che and Zhu Ji that they could ask for anything they wanted, and she would satisfy them. The moment those words came out, Zhu Yi's face flushed bright red on the spot. Sumair took the opportunity to wink at him, softly parting her lips. Really? I can satisfy anything? Before Zhu Yi could get fully excited, Zhang Che slammed the door shut with a loud bang. Furious, Zhu Yi demanded to know if Zhang Che even understood how to cherish a beauty. Zhang Che immediately smacked Zhu Yi hard on the head, scolding him. You won't even spare eerie beings, will you? At this moment, Xiao Man told Zhang Che that the woman was definitely not simple. Also, the villagers here, despite being only F-rank ghosts, had very strange auras. The instant she finished speaking, another wave of ghostly wails rang out. The walls of Zhang Che's room quickly blackened and twisted, as if they had been scorched by fire. Zhu Yi immediately pulled out his "Do you believe in the light?" to block this power from invading any further. At this point, Zhang Che finally completely understood why they had been smelling that burnt odor all along. This village had once been consumed by fire. Zhang Che immediately started piecing things together like a detective. Since the main quest was to find the village chief, then that made the vice village chief suspicious by default. An old man living in a mansion and married to a wife young enough to be his granddaughter, while the real village chief had vanished without a trace. Maybe the vice chief wanted to climb higher himself. That instantly got Zhu Yi fired up, and he proposed simply grabbing the vice village chief, torturing him, and forcing the truth about the village chief's whereabouts out of him. Zhang Che could only stare at him in total disbelief. Putting aside the child they met earlier and the ghost girl in the well, who exactly had been the figure that showed up behind him when the darkness fell? And more importantly, if the vice village chief really was the culprit, would he honestly parade his mansion and his young wife around that openly? But there was one thing Zhang Che was already pretty sure about. That dark erosion was most likely the manifestation of the village's curse. So the person they really needed to find next was the one who had cast it. But just then, a desperate cry for help suddenly came from outside the window, and both Zhang Che and Zhu Ji rushed over, trying to open it. The window, however, was sealed shut tight and would not budge no matter what they did. Xiao Man immediately warned Zhang Che not to do anything stupid. Whatever was outside was not something he could handle right now. At the same time, the door to their guest room creaked open. Standing there was Su Meyer, burned beyond recognition, calling for Zhang Che and Zhu Ji to come downstairs for dinner. The sight left both of them completely stunned. But when they actually went downstairs, they found the entire interior of the house charred black, like the remains of a fire. And the vice village chief, now burned into a blackened, corpse-like figure himself, cheerfully urged them to sit down and eat. Zhang Che politely said there was no need, but in his heart, he became even more certain of one thing. The vice village chief was not the killer. The temperature inside the house was now so high that Zhang Che's skin had already started to sting. Under normal circumstances, if a human stayed in temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius for too long, heat cramps or even heat exhaustion could set in. And this place was definitely at least 50 degrees. Even so, the vice village chief and Su Meyer kept urging Zhang Che to sit down and eat. Zhang Che wanted to refuse, but for the moment, he was not sure how to say it, because in this fire-ravaged environment, their power was close to absolute, even if water was technically their weakness. The problem was that Zhang Che could not find any water at all. Seeing that Zhang Che and Zhu Ji still refused to sit down, the burned Su Meyer suddenly flew into a rage, convinced that Zhang Che was looking down on the food she had made. In the next second, she lunged straight at him, but she was stopped cold by the lighter in Zhang Che's hand. Then she shrank back into the corner, trembling in fear. That was when Zhang Che fully confirmed it. Because they had died in the fire, they were instinctively terrified of flames. But before he could think any further, Zhu Yi snatched the lighter right out of Zhang Che's hand. Then he started waving it around at Su Meyer, threatening her with all the confidence in the world. Meanwhile, looking at the vice village chief charging him, Zhang Che drove a fist straight into the old man's face. The reason he dared to make a move was simple. The temperature in the room was already dropping, which meant the dark descent was about to end. Then Zhang Che raised the blood-red longsword and pressed it beside the vice village chief's neck, demanding to know what the dark descent really was. Why had the whole village burned? Had someone set the fire on purpose? But when he saw the vice village chief looking completely confused and obviously knowing nothing, Zhang Che instead showed a chilling smile. 2.5 minutes later, the dark descent ended, and the room returned to normal. Burned Su Meyer reverted as well. At the same time, Zhang Che finally brought his interrogation to an end. Combined with the system's hints, Zhang Che confirmed that the vice village chief truly knew nothing. After dinner ended, Su Meyer shamelessly pressed herself against Zhang Che again. She even hinted that he could sleep next door to her that night, since the vice village chief slept like the dead. Zhang Che remained completely unmoved and shut the door in her face. Zhu Yi, meanwhile, could only look on in envy, so he immediately suggested that he should investigate the woman. Zhang Che could investigate the vice village chief. His intentions were written all over his face, so Zhang Che bluntly shut him down and said there was no need. The vice village chief was not the problem. Then he told Zhu Ji to wait until nighttime. Soon, it was 11 at night. Zhang Che opened his eyes and woke Zhu Yi up at the same time. Then the two of them headed for the room next door. The beautiful wife was clearly already waiting for them, smiling as she said they could come in one at a time. But not long after Zhu Yi went in alone, Zhang Che heard him crying for help. Zhang Che immediately kicked the door open and rushed inside. There he saw Zhu Yi with blood all over his face, desperately trying to get away. Su Meyer, meanwhile, was holding on to him and refusing to let go. The sight left Zhang Che completely speechless. At the same time, the system gave him another hint. Su Meyer had gone so long without affection that her mind had become completely twisted. Seeing that, Zhang Che pulled out the blood-red longsword without hesitation. Then he drove it straight through Su Meyer. But instead of getting angry, she looked at Zhang Che with shy delight on her face. Zhang Che followed that up with a slap, and still she did not get mad in the slightest. That absurd scene dragged on for the entire night. In the end, Su Meyer finally gave Zhang Che the answer he wanted. The village chief had gone into the mountains before and never come back. Just as Zhang Che and Zhu Yi were preparing to head to the back mountain, they happened to run into Zhang Zihao, who was clearly hoping to work with Zhang Che. But Zhang Che had no interest in giving him that kind of face. For one thing, Xiao Man had already warned him that Zhang Zihao carried the scent of blood on him. On top of that, the number of challengers still following Zhang Zihao kept getting smaller and smaller. Zhang Che had zero interest in teaming up with him. The others, however, still trusted Zhang Zihao completely. So when Zhang Che turned him down, they all got visibly angry. Zhang Che originally had no interest in wasting time on them, but what he had not expected was that Zhang Zihao actually knew the clue about the village chief heading into the back mountain. So Zhang Che decided to go with them for the time being. At the same time though, he was quietly working something out in his head. In Eerie challenges, the biggest beneficiary was almost always the one leading the group, and the easiest way to become the leader was to brand yourself as some so-called blessed one. But Zhang Zihao kept building himself up as a nice guy, even sharing clues without hesitation. That meant one of two things. Either he was an idiot, or he was hiding something. Just then, Zhu Ji suddenly proposed that they should simply set the entire mountain on fire. Maybe that would force the village chief to come running out on his own. Zhang Che actually thought that idea sounded pretty solid, but Zhang Zihao panicked immediately and rejected it, saying they could all get burned to death too. Right then, Zhang Zihao stepped on something underfoot. When everyone looked down, they saw a corpse, and soon after, they realized there was far more than just one. At the same time, everyone received a system notification. Hidden location unlocked. Mass graveyard. Zhang Che was still wondering why every corpse was missing limbs. Xiao Man then warned him that something was wrong with the bodies. They did not seem to be truly dead at all. Suddenly, the alarm sounded again, meaning the dark descent was coming once more. But this time, there were no houses anywhere nearby for them to hide in. At that moment, Zhang Zihao pulled out a match and told everyone not to panic. Those things feared fire. As long as they stayed by his side, they would be safe. But Zhu Yi immediately sensed something was wrong, and the system soon proved his instincts right. The villagers had indeed died in a fire, which was why they feared flames. But the things in the mass graveyard had not died by fire at all. At that point, a pretty girl in the group was the first to realize what was wrong. Those eerie creatures were not stopping for the flames at all. But Zhang Zihao kept stubbornly insisting that the fire would work. By the time the eerie creatures burst through the fire and lunged at them, it was already too late to run. And yet, seeing all that, Zhang Zihao did not panic in the slightest. Instead, a creepy smile spread across his face. At that exact moment, a sword shot forward and pierced the eerie creature behind him. The pretty girl who made the move coldly warned Zhang Zihao to put away his schemes, or she would cut him down too. Zhang Zihao knew he had been seen through, but because that pretty girl had just saved him, he foolishly started thinking that maybe she actually liked him. Once Zhang Zihao saw that enough people had already died, he finally pulled out his trump card, an F-rank forbidden item, a rusted axe. As for his two lackeys, they each brought out F-rank forbidden items of their own. Only then did Zhang Che truly understand how much weight the Bureau of the Occult Qualification Challenge really carried. Zhu Yi, meanwhile, was not about to be left out. He pulled out his own forbidden item. Do you believe in the light? Then he hurled it straight at the eerie creatures. In an instant, blue flames erupted and scorched the monsters where they stood. Zhang Che, on the other hand, shrugged off the clothes getting in his way while preparing to show off his real weapon. As for the pretty girl nearby, her attacks were even cleaner. Every swing and every drop of her blade cut down eerie creatures one after another. But as more and more of them threw themselves at her, the ghost power inside her began to boil over. In the next instant, countless sword flashes lit up the area within several meters of her. That was her personal sword technique. 1,000 branches, 10,000 slashes. The eerie creatures barely even had time to exchange glances before they exploded into countless pieces. Still, someone who could butcher eerie beings as easily as she did was definitely in the minority. Then suddenly, her expression froze for a second because she had just seen Zhang Che casually chatting with an eerie creature. At the same time, Xiao Man reminded Zhang Che that inert objects could actually be fused together and asked whether he wanted to merge his two weapons. As soon as that came up, Zhang Che immediately remembered one of Xiao Man's pulled abilities, Master Forger. So he handed the whole job over to her on the spot, and even told her to make the final result look cool. Not long after, once the dark descent finally faded, the pretty girl began checking the corpses, trying to dig up any clues she could. But Zhang Che found a note on another corpse, even though that body definitely had not had one on it earlier. His mind immediately jumped to the child playing catch the ducks, the woman in the well, the fire in Corpse Ridge Village, the cries for help outside the window, and these mutilated corpses in front of him. Zhang Che could feel that these clues were somehow linked, yet for the moment, he still could not connect them into a complete picture. Off to the side, Zhang Zihao was still trying to team up with the pretty girl, but she shot back with a cold question. Did he really think everyone still believed he was some blessed one? Then she told him to get out of the way. Being brushed off that hard in front of everyone clearly left Zhang Zihao struggling to keep his composure. By now, even the people with a bit of sense and ability no longer wanted to cooperate with him. After all, from the way he had acted over the last 2 days, it was obvious he wanted the number of challengers reduced. Zhang Che watched Zhang Zihao keep trying to defend himself, but deep down, he was wondering whether the guy really only wanted the challenge rewards for himself. Just then, one of Zhang Zihao's lackeys, a fat man, saw that the pretty girl would not budge. So he turned his attention to Zhang Che and demanded to know what Zhang Che had just stuffed into his pocket. When Zhang Che did not bother acknowledging it, the fat man immediately tried moral blackmail. The more clues they had, the better their odds of surviving. So Zhang Che did not want to indirectly get people killed, did he? Hearing that, Zhang Che almost laughed in disbelief. If that was the logic they were using, then Zhang Zihao, who had led everyone up the mountain and nearly gotten them wiped out, counted as attempted murder. The fat man flew into a rage and prepared to snatch it by force. Zhang Che merely sneered. With a flick of his hand, a blood-red, bone-shattering longsword appeared in front of him. It was the D-rank forbidden item forged by Xiao Man, the the bone crusher blade. The fat man and the other two instantly felt their scalps go numb, because they could clearly sense that the bone crusher blade was already infinitely close to a C-rank forbidden item. Not daring to say another harsh word, the three of them turned and fled as fast as they could. But at that moment, the pretty girl suddenly looked at Zhang Che and calmly remarked that he really should have killed all three of them right there. Right after that, she introduced herself and said her name was Zu Xiaoyu. Zhang Che, however, deliberately avoided giving his own name and used Zhu Yi's instead. Zu Xiaoyu tilted her head slightly and told him that using one's real name in a place like this was not exactly a good idea. Zhang Che only smiled and said nothing. Then he asked directly what she wanted from him. Zu Xiaoyu did not bother beating around the bush. She wanted to exchange clues with Zhang Che. Zhang Che gestured for her to go first. Without hesitation, Zu Xiaoyu told him that earlier that morning, when she passed by one of the houses, she had heard a child's voice coming from inside. It was the same house Zhang Che had been the first to enter during the last dark descent. Zhang Che thought it over. During that dark descent, he really had heard a child crying for help, but he had never been able to confirm exactly where the voice had come from. Once he confirmed the clue really was useful, Zhang Che handed Zu Xiaoyu the note he had found. That instantly made Zhu Ji panic. He asked Zhang Che whether he was really just giving it away like that. Zhang Che looked completely unconcerned and casually said it was only an organ trafficking price list, when combined while the mass graveyard was stacked with the corpses of the young. The meaning of that list was already painfully obvious. On the way back, Zu Xiaoyu kept following behind Zhang Che and Zhu Jie. Zhang Che told her not to follow them, and Zu Xiaoyu softly said she could not get into that room. Zhang Che was not buying any of it. Their clue trade earlier had already been fair. If she still wanted to piggyback off their progress, then she needed to show a little more sincerity. For example, she could start by giving him a smile. Unexpectedly, Zu Xiaoyu did not argue back at all. Instead, she actually pinched her own cheeks, forced out an awkward smile, called him Big Brother Zhang Che, and softly asked whether she could piggyback on their progress now. Even so, Zhang Che still turned Zu Xiaoyu down without a second thought. Even when she offered him 500,000, he still would not agree. He even casually told her that the last person who tried to make him that kind of offer now had grave grass growing taller than the tomb itself. And with that, Zu Xiaoyu was shut outside the door without mercy. The ghost spirit inside Zu Xiaoyu quietly let out a breath of relief, grateful that things had not turned violent. Because even though the ghost spirit inside Zhang Che had been hiding its aura the whole time, it could still sense that it was something frighteningly powerful. As for Zu Xiaoyu, she clearly had no intention of giving up. Instead, she planned to gather more clues and use those to trade with Zhang Che. Meanwhile, Zhang Che returned to the house where they had hidden before. He did not see any children at first, but he still chose to trust the clue Zu Xiaoyu had given him. But as time dragged on, even by 2:30 in the afternoon, there was still no movement at all. Zhang Che could not help wondering whether the mechanism only triggered at night. Just then, however, a sound suddenly came from the bathroom. Zhang Che and Zhu Ji pulled back the curtain and saw a hand sticking out of the toilet. Then a head slowly rose out after it. The moment the kid saw Zhang Che, he immediately shouted for Zhang Che to pull him up. Zhang Che instinctively recoiled at the sight, but in the end, he still gritted his teeth and pulled out 4 kids in a row from the toilet. Those kids seemed to trust Zhang Che a lot, because in their eyes, anyone who could enter that room had to have been introduced by Aunt Zhou. And that so-called Aunt Zhou was none other than the female ghost Zhang Che had met in the well. Then the kids suddenly invited Zhang Che and Zhu Yi to play a game. The first introduced himself as Big Dog, while the others were named Second Dog, Third Dog, and Fourth Dog. After that, they asked Zhang Che and Zhu Ji what their names were. Zhang Che glanced at the system prompt and saw that the uglier a name was, the easier it was to keep someone alive. So he immediately told Zhu Ji to go along with him. One of them would be Zhang Dog, and the other would be Wild Dog. Sure enough, the shared dog in their names quickly earned them the kids' affection. So when Zhang Che casually asked what game they were supposed to play, the kids answered without any hesitation: Script Murder. The moment Zhang Che took the script, he already knew there had to be a key clue hidden inside it. What he did not expect was that the pages were completely blank. There was not a single word written inside. The kids explained that the roles Zhang Che and Zhu Ji were playing were simple, so they did not need scripts at all. Not long after that, a beer bottle smashed against the ground, signaling the official start of the script game. Big Dog played the father. Zhang Che and Zhu Yi played the family's children. Second Dog played the mother, and the husband and wife immediately launched into a vicious argument. The whole plot felt painfully real and ridiculously melodramatic. In the end, the emotionally unstable mother directly blew up the house. She herself died in the explosion as well. The father was consumed with regret. In the next part of the story, once the village chief arrived, Zhang Che and Zhu Ji's child roles were shoved into a small room. But Zhang Che obviously had no intention of staying put. Instead, he secretly peered through the crack in the door and watched the children continue the performance. As the plot unfolded, it became clear that even though the mother had blown herself up, the father still shared part of the blame. So the village chief, played by Fourth Dog, offered to send the father into the city to hide for a while, and the father was deeply grateful for that kindness. But then the story took a brutal turn. While the father was completely off guard, a needle was suddenly jabbed into his neck. The one who did it was the mysterious doctor played by Third Dog, and the village chief did not seem surprised at all. After that, the father was taken into an operating room, and one by one, his organs were harvested. Once the doctor was done, he told the village chief to pay up, and also demanded a higher price. In his eyes, $250,000 for a heart was far too cheap, and the village chief did not reject the request for a price increase. After the father was dumped into the mass grave, the doctor produced a new price list, but the village chief immediately noticed something was wrong, because the prices had not changed at all. The doctor calmly said he must have pulled out the wrong sheet by mistake, yet while pretending to search through his bag, he quietly drew out a dagger. Then, when the village chief was not looking, he killed him on the spot. He even cut off the village chief's head afterward. Seeing all this, Zhang Che understood everything at once. The headless corpse he had found in the mass grave had been the village chief. That meant the village chief had worked with this mysterious doctor to sell the organs of the village's young people, only to be murdered by his own accomplice in the end. But Zhang Che quickly realized something else. When he had found that headless corpse before, the system had not given him any prompt saying the main quest to find the village chief was complete, which meant finding the body alone was not enough. They would have to recover the village chief's head too. Just then, the alarm sounded once again. As the dark descent began, every scene in the room reverted to how it had originally been. The children immediately told Zhang Che that night had fallen and they had to go back, or their younger siblings would worry. The moment they finished speaking, all of them crawled back into the toilet one after another and vanished without a trace. Watching all of this, Zhang Che only grew more confused. The young people in the village had all been slaughtered, leaving behind nothing but the elderly. But if that was the case, where had all the children gone? So Zhang Che decided that once the dark descent ended, he would head out again and keep looking for clues. When Zhang Che and Zhu Yi stepped outside, they found Su Xiaojin already waiting there. She immediately told Zhang Che she had a new clue to exchange. Zhang Che had originally planned to brush her off, but to his surprise, Su Xiaojin claimed she had an 80% chance of completing the main quest on the spot. Seeing the disbelief on Zhang Che's face, Su Xiaojin quickly insisted she was not lying and said she could take them there right now. But in return, Zhang Che would have to help her clear the challenge quest. Zhang Che only gave a vague answer and said he would think about it. To his surprise, Su Xiaojin acted as if that already counted as an agreement. Zhu Yi quietly leaned over and asked Zhang Che how Su Xiaojin could be so certain in the first place. But that whisper did not escape Su Xiaojin's ears. She openly told both of them anyway. In a previous challenge, she had heard information about Corpse Ridge Village, including a clue that clearly stated the village chief had ended up separated from his head. And based on what she later found out, the village chief's head was currently hidden inside his own house. Zhang Che did not find that too surprising. Information in the Eerie world had always circulated between instances, but then Su Xiaojin suddenly stopped walking, and her entire expression tightened. She had sensed the arrival of an Eerie being above D rank. In the next second, a pair of long legs wrapped in black stockings stepped into view. Then, a familiar, mature beauty came into Zhang Che's sight. It was none other than Sun Xiaoxiao, the head nurse from Yellow Springs Hospital. Zhang Che blurted out in shock that it was impossible. The head nurse instantly closed the distance and asked him back, almost face to face, why it would be impossible. A short while later, inside the village chief's house, the head nurse explained everything to Zhang Che. The truth was that she had not truly died back then. Her good side and evil side had simply merged back together, and only now was she finally whole. Because of that, she was actually grateful to Zhang Che. He had been the one who gave her salvation. During the conversation, though, Zhang Che also learned from her that there would be a lively child temple sacrifice ceremony in Corpse Ridge Village the next day, and that Yellow Springs Hospital was desperately short on organs, so the director had sent her here to buy them. Of course, the head nurse understood perfectly well that Zhang Che was trying to fish information out of her. She simply did not care, because Zhang Che had truly helped her before. She even deliberately told him that the vice village chief's son had studied medicine, and that in the past, organ harvesting in the village had always been handled by that man. Zhang Che was completely stunned by that. He had never known the vice village chief even had a son. Once the conversation was over, the head nurse smiled on her way out, and even told Zhang Che that if he ever had any stock, he could come to her. Zhang Che ignored Zhu Yi, trying to cozy up to her. In the end, that guy was just acting up again because he had seen another gorgeous woman. After that, Zhang Che casually tossed the village chief's head to Zu Xiaoyu and prepared to head back toward Corpse Ridge Village. But at that exact moment, Zhang Zihao's group showed up, saying they wanted to complete the main quest together. Zu Xiaoyu rejected them without a second thought. The more people who completed the main quest, the more the overall rating would suffer. That completely shattered Zhang Zihao's composure, and he immediately started hurling filthy insults at Zu Xiaoyu. Zu Xiaoyu did not even blink. She only asked Zhang Che to hold the village chief's head for a moment. In the next instant, her figure blurred, and she appeared right behind Zhang Zihao. As she slowly sheathed her blade, Zhang Zihao's head slid clean off his neck. Zhang Che's pupils narrowed in shock. He had thought at first that this was some kind of ghost spirit ability, but Xiaoman told him that it was not ghost power at all. That was Zu Xiaoju's own strength. At that point, Zhang Che could not help suspecting that Zu Xiaoyu might actually already be a D-rank challenger. So when this girl who looked cute and harmless got angry, she really showed absolutely no mercy. Zhang Che also finally understood why. When he had shaken hands with Zu Xiaoyu before, her skin had not felt soft and smooth like an ordinary girl's, but rough with calluses. Those were the marks of someone who had gone through serious, inhuman levels of training. Now, with only 2 people left from Zhang Zihao's side, Zu Xiaoyu calmly asked them whether they intended to withdraw on their own or whether she should keep going. Yet instead of backing down, they actually tried threatening her by saying they would go back and report what had happened. Zu Xiaoyu could not even be bothered to waste words on them. She simply raised her sword again. Before everyone's eyes, the fat one was cut into 3 pieces. The remaining skinny one collapsed to the ground in terror, shaking all over. While crawling backward, he screamed that he wanted to quit. But the next second, another flash of sword light cut through the air. Zu Xiaoyu gave him no chance at all. Denying her eyes, if she did not deal with it now, that opportunity would never come again. After that, Zu Xiaoyu picked up the village chief's head again and led Zhang Che and the others to the mass grave, where they found the village chief's headless corpse. The moment the two were reunited, the system announced that the main quest was complete, but Zu Xiaoyu still was not satisfied. To keep Zhang Zihao's group from reviving and catching up later, she actually buried the village chief's corpse again, cutting off their chance to finish the main quest. Only after doing all that did she turn back and tell Zhang Che to hand over the clues he had found. Zhang Che was obviously reluctant. After all he had said earlier was that he would think about it. But Zu Xiaoyu clearly saw through him. She bluntly told him that this challenge quest was D rank, and without her help, he had no chance of clearing it. And the only reason she had not already turned on him was because she feared the ghost spirit inside him. Otherwise, she would have made her move long ago. Faced with that level of direct honesty, Zhang Che was just about to act tough and say that he could rely on his ghost spirit alone. But before he could finish, Xiaoman slapped a hand over his mouth. The truth was that whenever the dark descent began, Xiaoman's power was mysteriously restricted. Hearing that, Zhang Che could only cover his face in helpless embarrassment. He had just rejected her, and now he had to agree to cooperate after all. That was a serious loss of face. Zhu Yi immediately caught on to Zhang Che's awkwardness and stepped in to smooth things over, saying he could answer on Zhang Che's behalf and agree to work with Zu Xiaoyu. But Zu Xiaoyu wanted no part of that. She only wanted Zhang Che in her eyes. Zhu Yi, that useless white-haired guy, was dead weight. As she said that, she slowly drew her sword and calmly asked Zhu Yi whether he planned to leave on his own or wanted her to send him off. Zhu Yi obviously had no intention of backing out. At that moment, Zhang Che stepped forward. He flatly rejected Zu Xiaoju's proposal and made it clear that if they were going to cooperate, it would be the 3 of them together. Otherwise, the deal was off. Zu Xiaoyu fell silent for a moment, then reluctantly agreed. After that, she shared the clue she had uncovered. The villagers of Corpse Ridge Village seemed to fear the ghost children in the child temple on the back mountain deeply. That was why they held sacrifices regularly, and also why the village enforced a curfew at night. It was all to avoid those children. So if their guess was right, then getting rid of those ghost children would break Corpse Ridge Village's curse. After hearing that, Zhang Che also shared what he knew. The vice village chief's son was the one who had cut off the village chief's head. Then he proposed a meeting, 8 o'clock tonight, at the child temple. But at that moment, Zhu Yi's mood suddenly turned strange. He asked Zhang Che whether they really intended to deal with those kids. Zhang Che was puzzled, but still explained that those so-called little kids were eerie beings, nothing more. Even though he could already tell something was off about Zhu Yi, Zhang Che did not think too deeply about it and simply took Zhu Yi back to the vice village chief's house. The moment they got in, Zhang Che directly asked Su Meyer where the vice village chief's son had gone. Su Meyer said she did not know, but she did add that she herself was a priestess of the child temple, so tomorrow he would naturally see the man. After that, Zhang Che returned to the guest room and quietly waited until 8 that night. As Zhang Che and Zhu Ji approached the child temple, one of the ghost kids suddenly blocked Zhang Che's path. He was holding a human head in his arms and looked up, asking Zhang Che if he would play soccer with him. But in the next second, the child set his sights on Zhang Che's handsome face, wanting to rip it off and use his head as a soccer ball instead. However, Zhang Che's reaction was faster. He stepped up to the kid, twisted his head clean off, and calmly told him, "Your head is your ball." This is the true unity of man and ball, the highest realm of soccer. The child suddenly looked as if he had been enlightened by a great truth, and happily waved goodbye to Zhang Che. Meanwhile, by the old well at the village entrance, a strange man stood with his head down, murmuring something to himself. Soon after, Zhang Che and Zhu Ji finally arrived at the child temple. But when he saw the person waiting in front of the temple, Zhang Che completely froze. The skin was just as fair, the legs just as long. But this girl greeting him with red twin tails left Zhang Che completely dumbfounded. Only then did Zhang Che realize that this girl was actually Zu Xiaoyu, and her previous mature appearance was nothing more than a disguise. Zhang Che was incredibly shocked because normally, freely changing one's appearance required being at least a 5th level challenger. Zu Xiaoyu seemed like she was about to explain further, when suddenly, wave after wave of eerie sounds drifted into their ears. In the next second, the child temple in front of them burst into raging flames. Immediately after, those ghost children slowly walked out from the firelight, crying continuously. They called out, searching for their moms and dads. They huddled together instinctively, as if they were absolutely terrified of being left alone. But in the next moment, their bodies began to slowly melt and fuse together. Eventually, right before Zhang Che and the others' eyes, they forcefully condensed into a gigantic flesh ball monster. That grotesque sight made their stomachs churn in extreme disgust. And because these children had fused together, the monster's aura began fluctuating wildly between D rank and C rank. Right then, a massive palm slammed down toward them, and the three instantly scattered in different directions to dodge. At the same time, Zhang Che and Zu Xiaoyu drew their weapons. With perfect teamwork, they quickly severed one of the flesh ball's arms. But when Zhang Che and the others looked back, they saw that the flesh ball, which had been wailing in pain, was rapidly regenerating its severed arm at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Xiaoman proactively appeared to help Zhang Che. She warned him that this flesh ball not only possessed mental attack capabilities, but also had strength approaching C rank. As soon as she finished speaking, Xiaoman instantly fused with Zhang Che. On the other side, seeing this, Zu Xiaoyu also fused with her ghost spirit, causing her red twin tails to instantly take on a strange gradient color. In an instant, both of them charged at the flesh ball, and the battle completely erupted. But off to the side, Zhu Ji was trembling violently all over. It was as if some incredibly terrible memories had suddenly been dragged to the surface. His mind was filled with the unbearable words and events from his past. Meanwhile, things weren't easy for Zhang Che either, because the flesh ball's super regeneration was simply too fast. No matter how much the two of them hacked at it, it seemed impossible to cut down. Originally, Zu Xiaoyu intended to step in and cover Zhang Che, but the flesh ball seized that exact opening. With a loud boom, the monster delivered a heavy blow straight to Zu Xiaoyu's abdomen. Zhang Che capitalized on this split second to counterattack, rushing right in front of the flesh ball and slicing it in two with a single strike. Unexpectedly this time, the creature did not immediately trigger its super regeneration. Zhang Che was overjoyed, finally realizing that the human faces scattered across the flesh ball surface were its true weak points. He immediately shared this good news with Zu Xiaoyu, but taking advantage of Zhang Che's distraction, the flesh ball slapped a massive hand viciously across his face. It was so fast that even Zu Xiaoyu didn't have time to shout a warning. This slap directly broke Zhang Che's defense on the spot. Seeing this, Zu Xiaoyu frowned and stated that just breaking a face was useless. It only slowed its recovery speed slightly. Since the quest difficulty had escalated to this level, the mechanic couldn't possibly be this simple. After saying that, she raised her sword and charged at the flesh ball again. At the same time, a system prompt appeared before Zhang Che's eyes. Staring at the words whole and as one, Zhang Che immediately deduced the truth. They needed to smash all the faces at the exact same time. The problem was, just him and Zu Xiaoyu alone could never accomplish that in a short time. So he instantly thought of Zhu Yi, the forbidden item on him. Do you believe in the light? Was precisely an area of effect attack. But no matter how loudly Zhang Che yelled, Zhu Yi completely ignored him. Seeing this, Xiaoman quietly signaled Zhang Che to stop shouting. That white-haired guy was clearly under the severe influence of a mental contamination. Because his own willpower wasn't firm enough, he could only rely on himself to break free now. At this moment, from the countless children's faces on the flesh ball, Zhu Yi was feeling emotions of madness, ferocity, grievance, despair, and sorrow. These emotions mirrored everything he had experienced back then. When his mother was murdered, he too had been like this, unable to do anything, simply letting despair spread. Facing the lunging flesh ball again, Zhu Yi even started to give up, struggling, prepared to surrender his own life along with it. But right then, an ethereal figure seemed to gently hold his hand, tenderly telling him that he was never a coward. She told Zhu Yi that he was stronger than anyone, that his future would be as brilliant as a sea of stars, and that he shouldn't care about others' stares or vicious rumors, because he would always be his mother's pride. In this moment, Zhu Yi finally completely snapped out of it. By a hair's breadth, he narrowly dodged the flesh ball's lethal pounce. Right after, he whipped out talismans and threw them fiercely at the flesh ball. The instant the talismans touched the flesh ball, they began burning madly across its body. Following that, Zhu Yi decisively threw his forbidden bracelet. Do you believe in the light? In a flash, every human face on the surface of the flesh ball was covered by blue flames. Seeing this, even Zu Xiaoyu couldn't help but look at the white-haired guy with a newfound respect. Zhang Che seized this perfect opportunity and leaped into the air. The flesh ball seemed to realize what was coming. It actually started apologizing to Zhang Che, begging to be spared, crying that they were just too scared. Hearing this, Zhang Che merely whispered a soft, "Sorry." In the next second, he swung the bone crusher blade down, splitting the entire flesh ball in two. And this time, the flesh ball finally stopped its super regeneration. Instead, the monster's fused state began to quickly unravel. The twisted flesh and blood slowly turned into countless fragments, beginning to dissipate bit by bit. In the end, they all returned to the still-burning child temple. Right then, a panel appeared before Zhang Che and the others, displaying that they had completed the hidden quest of the children of Corpse Ridge Village. In other words, these children were not the true source of Corpse Ridge Village's curse, and the challenge quest was not yet complete. Even so, Zhu Yi was incredibly smug about it, since he really had been a huge help. But in the very next second, the smile vanished from his face. He just toppled straight backward. It turned out that his earlier burst of effort had completely overdrawn his stamina. Seeing this, Zhang Che shook his head helplessly. After that, Zhang Che carried Zhu Yi back inside the house on his back. Zu Xiaoyu's ghost spirit suggested she borrow some medicine from Zhang Che. With 3 broken ribs and massive internal bleeding, Zhu Yi wouldn't last much longer. But Zu Xiaoyu refused. Not only was medicine extremely precious in the Eerie world, but she had also offended Zhang Che's bro. However, Zhang Che directly tossed the medicine to Zu Xiaoyu. This left Zu Xiaoyu stunned, and she asked Zhang Che why he was giving it to her. Even though Zhang Che was being a bit tsundere about it, the underlying message was clear enough. They were friends now. This made Zu Xiaoyu lower her head, feeling both embarrassed and disappointed that she didn't have any more clues to offer. But Zhang Che dismissed that thought. The clue regarding the Vice Village Chief's son hadn't even been used yet. When the next day arrived, the sacrifice ceremony began. Zhang Che and the other two quietly followed along. Along the way, Zhang Che assigned tasks, instructing Zhu Yi to head to the operating room where the organs were harvested to gather clues there. Zu Xiaoyu was to go to the mass graveyard and act according to their plan. As for Zhang Che, he wore the clothes Su Meyer had stolen to blend into the sacrifice procession. A short while later, the ceremony officially commenced. Xiao Man urged Zhang Che to run quickly, because that guy wearing the mask was a genuine C-rank Eerie being. This was completely different from the C-rank Eerie beings Zhang Che had encountered before, as those weren't true C ranks. For Eerie beings below C rank, their weak points were simply the head or the heart, and they could be killed by releasing enough power through forbidden items or ghost power. However, once an Eerie being reached C rank, it would strengthen and protect its weak points, and some C ranks would even awaken a new power, known as an Eerie domain. Eerie domains were complex, ever-changing, incredibly varied, and hard to specifically describe. One had to find the corresponding mechanism to dispel them. Of course, Xiao Man had one too, except hers was far too powerful. And with Zhang Che's current state, he couldn't utilize it yet. At this moment, the sacrifice officially got underway. But suddenly, the offering shattered, and the burning incense snapped in half, along with them. While the villagers were completely bewildered, the masked man told them that the children in the child temple were angry, and the culprits were the strangers who had arrived a few days ago. In the next instant, Zhang Che was directly pointed out by the masked man. Instantly, the villagers grew furious and began transforming into Eerie beings one after another. Zhang Che originally wanted to explain something, but the head nurse suddenly stepped out of the crowd to stand in front of Zhang Che, signaling that she would hold these people off for him. Besides, Yellow Springs Hospital's director happened to need some stock, and there was plenty right here. Although Zhang Che hadn't expected the head nurse to help him, whether they could complete the challenge quest hinged on this exact moment. In the next moment, Zhang Che shouted toward the children in the child temple, telling them that their parents were not dead. The moment those words came out, the masked man panicked and ordered the villagers to quickly finish Zhang Che off. However, with the head nurse blocking the way in front of Zhang Che, for a while, the eerie beings couldn't get anywhere near him, and Zhang Che continued shouting toward the child temple, saying their parents would be back soon and that they missed them too. Unexpectedly, the child temple still showed no reaction. Zhang Che thought to himself that it was impossible. His deduction shouldn't have been wrong. Meanwhile, more and more eerie beings were swarming toward the head nurse. In a moment of carelessness, her leg was bitten by the eerie beings. Xiaoman also urged Zhang Che that it was better to leave quickly, but Zhang Che was unwilling, because true invincibility didn't exist, and no one could just brute force their way through everything. This was a complete eerie world, a world filled with countless wills and stories. In this world, the mechanism reigns supreme. Neither strength, power, nor money could cross that chasm. These thoughts flashed by in an instant, and Zhang Che shouted at the child temple that he could take them to find their moms and dads. The moment he finished speaking, the child temple finally reacted. A ghost boy slowly walked out. Zhang Che knew the mechanism had finally been triggered. The eerie villagers also halted their attacks. Seeing this, the masked man panicked, screaming that Zhang Che's words were lies, that their parents were long dead and had already abandoned them. However, the ghost boy no longer trusted him, believing that the masked man was the real liar. These words undoubtedly caused the masked man to break down. Sparks started popping and shooting out from his body. Zhang Che instantly realized that the vice village chief's son had also been burned to death in the fire. But this did not align with his earlier theories. At this point, the masked man kept muttering non-stop that they all deserved to die. The ghost kids found him too noisy. Instantly, the floorboards of the temple flew up and directly sealed the masked man underneath. While Zhang Che was surprised, the appearance of the ghost kids also confirmed that his judgment hadn't been wrong. But why wasn't the masked man, the vice village chief's son, the source of the village's curse either? Right then, a ghost boy tugged on Zhang Che's clothes, asking him to take them to find their moms and dads. Xiaoman actually wanted Zhang Che to give up because the ghost kids wouldn't be able to suppress the masked man for too long. Zhang Che absolutely refused to do so. At this moment, the head nurse signaled to Zhang Che to leave things here to her, telling him to go handle his own business. Hearing this, Zhang Che boldly asked the head nurse if she was helping him time and time again because she liked him and wanted to become his ghost spirit. The head nurse turned her head away and denied it, stating she just didn't want to owe a favor to a human. As for whether that was true or not, no one knew. It turned out that after Zhang Che became the king of the kids, he took the ghost kids to go find their moms and dads. When Zu Xiaoyu brought the eerie beings from the mass graveyard to reunite with Zhang Che, both sides completely froze. Following that, their appearances began to revert. For the ghost kids, the only place they could call home was wherever their family was. Just as the ghost kids and their parents embraced each other, the system panel prompt chimed for Zhang Che and the others. The missing moms and dads and the longing of left-behind children mechanisms were 100% active. Zhang Che looked at this heartwarming scene and asked Zu Xiaoyu if she missed her own parents. Who would have expected Zu Xiaoyu to say, with a completely calm face, that her parents had already been killed by her own hands? Zhang Che's face instantly darkened, and the two didn't discuss it further. After all, they weren't familiar enough for that level of conversation. Instead, they talked about why Corpse Ridge Village had so many left-behind children. The main reason was that the village chief had not only harvested their parents' organs, but had also gathered the remaining children into the temple, leaving them there to fend for themselves and perish. Before the mechanism was truly triggered, neither side could actually leave their assigned area, which was why they never managed to see each other. Meanwhile, if time was rewound by half an hour, after Zhu Yi found the operating room where the organs had been sold, he immediately started searching it for clues. What he did not know was that someone had been following him quietly the entire time. The moment Zhu Yi finally found the clue he was looking for, an axe suddenly appeared across his throat. The one holding it was none other than Zhang Zihao, who had revived. After coming back, Zhang Zihao had not withdrawn from the instance. Instead, he still wanted to complete the main quest. But because Su Xiaojin had buried the village chief's corpse, Zhang Zihao could not find it, which meant he could not finish the main quest. Completely broken by that, he decided to ruin Zhang Che's group's challenge quest instead. So in the next second, he instinctively threw out the axe and threatened Zhu Yi to hand over the clue. Zhu Yi refused, of course. As a result, Zhang Zihao beat the hell out of him, but by pure accident, that beating knocked Zhu Yi right beside the very axe that had been thrown out. In an instant, the whole situation reversed. Zhu Yi grabbed the axe, then looked back at Zhang Zihao with a nasty grin. Meanwhile, when Zhu Yi still had not returned, Zhang Che was already starting to get impatient. Fortunately, not long after that, a bruised and battered Zhu Yi staggered back. It turned out that even though he got hold of the axe, Zhang Zihao no longer had any resurrection chances left. so Zhu Yi did not dare kill him outright. After several rounds of fighting, Zhu Yi ultimately just tied Zhang Zihao up. Zhang Che, meanwhile, focused on the clue Zhu Yi had brought back. It was a family photo, and the child in the picture was unmistakably the same duck-catching little boy Zhang Che had met before. Then Zhang Che noticed that there was also a note hidden inside the photo's inner layer. Once he read what was written on it, he immediately knew this run was definitely going to clear. But right then, the masked man broke free from the children's seal. Looking at the villagers who had finally reunited with their families, he only grew angrier and more shattered inside. Why did they get to reunite at all? So he poured all of that rage straight onto the so-called culprit, Zhang Che. Zhang Che, however, turned and ran. Of course, it was not a true retreat. What Zhang Che really wanted was to lure the masked man all the way to the old well. When he got there, Zhang Che shouted into the well for Zhou Yi and told her a new client had arrived. In the next second, Zhou Yi really did crawl out of the well. But the moment she saw the masked man, she froze where she was. Then she slowly asked him whether he had finally come to see her. Zu Xiaoyu and Zhu Ji, who had been chasing behind, were both completely lost at what they were seeing. The truth was that Zhang Che had already pieced it together from the system's earlier hints. The village beauty of Corpse Ridge Village had once been Zhou Yi, and the secret she discovered had been the village's fatal truth. As for the note Zhu Yi brought back, it was actually a letter of accusation. It said clearly that Zhou Yi's mother had been a prostitute who disappeared after giving birth to her, and because Zhou Yi never knew who her real father was, the villagers called her a bastard from childhood. Later, after discovering the village chief's secret, Zhou Yi told her lover about it. That lover was the vice village chief's son, and the two of them had a bitter argument because of it. Zhou Yi then decided to leave the village with the child. But during that conversation, the vice village chief happened to overhear them. Since he had always looked down on Zhou Yi anyway, he joined forces with the village chief and pushed her into the well to silence her forever. As for why the ghost doctor later killed the village chief, it had never been about money. What he really wanted was revenge for the woman he loved. At that moment, Zhou Yi slowly raised her hand and removed the masked man's mask. The instant his face was revealed, he pulled her into a desperate kiss. The scene was so intense that even the others watching could not help blushing. While gently stroking Zhou Yi's cheek, he held her tightly and asked in a trembling voice whether she still hated him. Zhou Yi, whose beauty had now returned, quietly answered that perhaps she really had hated him once. She had resented his cowardice, resented that he never dared admit their relationship under his father's pressure, and never dared acknowledge that the child was his. If he had stepped forward back then, maybe none of this would have happened. But too much time had passed. She no longer had the strength to keep hating. Still, the dead children, the fire, and the village's destruction all deserved an ending. The masked man sincerely apologized for his cowardice, but he also explained that the children's deaths were not his doing. The child temple's collapse had not been caused by him, nor had the great fire in the village. He himself had died in that same fire. Right then, the duck-catching little boy stepped forward and admitted that both the collapse of the child temple and the fire in the village had been his doing. The child was, in fact, Zhou Yi and the masked man's son. He had hated his father for being too weak, for ultimately causing both Zhou Yi's death and his own. With those words, the child fully unfolded his eerie domain. It was called ruin, and its effect was to make people die submerged in their own regret. So it was not only Zu Xiaoyu and Zhu Yi, even the entire population of Corpse Ridge Village was instantly dragged into a mental illusion. Only at that moment did Zhang Che fully understand it. The duck-catching brat was the true source of the village's curse. But that same overwhelming gap in level also dragged Zhang Che himself into the illusion. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Zhang Che's older sister, Zhang Wan, suddenly felt a violent palpitation in her chest, though she had no idea why. Then, to her horror, she noticed that the figure in the mirror had not disappeared when she moved away. On the contrary, the reflection smiled at her with a horrifyingly twisted expression. In the next second, the mirror shattered violently. Bureau Uncle moved at once and yanked the eerie creature hiding inside the mirror out into the open. He immediately guessed that the Yi family had probably started targeting Zhang Che's sister, but before he could investigate further, his phone rang. The instant he heard the message, his pupils shrank. The blindfolded woman had called to tell him that the summons of judgment had been issued. Every bureau team captain across the country was being called in. Jing Xiaolin of Squad 3033 could not help worrying about whether her own captain would make it back alive. The last summons of judgment 3 years ago had cost the lives of dozens of squad captains, but worrying changed nothing. None of the ordinary team members had been called in. Still, every bureau squad captain was a top-tier challenger. To protect this flourishing Daxia, they were willing to build a great wall from bone and water its borders with blood. Back on Zhang Qi's side, once he had truly fallen into the mental illusion, no matter how Xiaoman called to him, he simply could not wake up. Fortunately, Zhang Che possessed mental reinforcement, which made his mind much stronger than an ordinary person's, so even trapped in the illusion, he never truly started wanting to die. Xiaoman realized this and bluntly told him she was wearing black stockings today, and if he did not wake up now, he would miss the chance to see them. As a positive, healthy young man of the modern age, Zhang Che naturally had to wake up at once and condemn that sort of moral corruption properly. Of course, the moment he woke up, he also realized that Xiaoman had tricked him again. Even so, his attention was immediately drawn to the new system prompt. It was then that Zhang Che finally understood the child's real hatred. At its core, it had always come from the desperate lack of parental love. Xiaoman told him that the fastest way to shatter the brat's Eerie domain was simply to kill him. But the moment Zhang Che woke up completely, the child noticed as well. In the next second, he threw a heavy punch straight at Zhang Che. But when he saw Zhang Che actually block it, the child only got more excited. He even bragged that he would drag Zhang Che's family into the Eerie world too, and torture them slowly. That line instantly ignited Zhang Che's fury. Family had always been his absolute bottom line. He immediately told Xiaoman to fuse with him. He was going to cut that little bastard down himself. The problem was that the child was now a real C-rank Eerie being. Once Zhang Che was injured while fused with a ghost spirit, the resurrection system would no longer reset his injuries. Xiaoman wanted to refuse, but in the end, Zhang Che's stubbornness overwhelmed her, so she fused with him once again. In the next second, Zhang Che raised the D-rank Bone Crusher blade and brought it down at the child with killing intent. At the moment their attacks crossed, the child somehow understood Zhang Che's fierce desire to protect his family. That only made him break down even harder. Zhang Che showed him no mercy and drove the knife in with his words too, telling him that he was simply jealous. Jealous that other people had parents who loved them while he had nothing. Zhang Che did sympathize with him, but that still did not give him the right to threaten Zhang Che's family. The child's face twisted savagely as he screamed that he did not need such disgusting bonds. Right as the child and Zhang Che crashed together again, Zu Xiaoyu, who had still been trapped in the illusion, slowly raised her hand. Then she gripped her sword and slashed her own hand open without hesitation. The sharp pain finally snapped her awake. Zhu Yi, meanwhile, was also jolted back to his senses by the light once again shining from the bracelet that had returned to his hand. Zhu Yi immediately wanted to rush over and help Zhang Che, but the sight of Zu Xiaoyu being that ruthless to herself made him jump in shock. On the other side, Zhang Che, still in the middle of the fight, was dragged backward by Zhu Yi. Then Zu Xiaoyu rushed in to take his place. Xiaoman reminded them that if they could cut off the enemy's head, then they should go for the head first. No matter where an Eerie being's true weakness was hidden, severing the head would still weaken it greatly. The moment she said that, Zhang Che instantly understood why Xiaoman herself had once lost her head first. Hearing this, Zu Xiaoyu poured all of her ghost spirit's power into her blade. Her figure began flashing around the child at blinding speed, but the child used his own ghost power to keep his defense perfectly airtight. Zu Xiaoyu simply could not reach his neck. Then Zhang Che seized the split second when the child's attention was drawn away by Zu Xiaoyu and leaped behind him. At the same time, Zhu Ji once again activated his forbidden item. Do you believe in the light? The child instinctively tried to shove Zu Xiaoyu away first, but this time, he was already too late. In the next instant, the three of them attacked him at once from 3 different directions. The force of the impact kicked up a dense cloud of smoke. Zhang Che and the others stared into it, full of hope. But when the smoke cleared, what they saw was the masked man shielding the child and taking all 3 of their attacks head-on. Zhang Che, whose ghost power had now been totally exhausted, could no longer keep his body standing. Xiaoman immediately warned him that his condition was catastrophic. His blood vessels were rupturing, his organs were failing, and his bones would soon begin cracking too. If he broke the fusion at this point, he would die horribly. Across from them, the child stared blankly at the father who had shielded him and asked in a trembling voice, "Why?" The masked man only gave a relieved smile and said he had never been a qualified father or a qualified lover. His cowardice had failed them both. Perhaps for him, this was the best ending he could ask for, because at least this time, he had finally managed to protect his son once. The child fell silent for several seconds. Then suddenly, he exploded with rage, grabbing the father who should have been fading away and screaming whether he really thought that would earn forgiveness. As he shouted, the child's ghost power began pouring into his father's body in a torrent. The father, who had been on the verge of dissolving, gradually became solid again. The child roared that it was the father who had abandoned them first, that he did not deserve release, and that the child would never let him get what he wanted. He would keep his father by his side forever to atone. All he had ever wanted was a home, and it was his father who had taken that home away from him. That was why he hated him. This sudden twist left Zhang Che and the others stunned. Xiaoman was the first to understand it. The brat and the masked man shared a symbiotic connection, and the one who controlled that connection was the child. The two of them could actually share power between them. The reason the masked man's strength had been drained earlier was because the child had simply taken it back. In plain terms, the masked man by himself was only F rank at best. There was no way he could have survived Zhang Qi's team's full-force attack. The only reason he had managed it was because the child had flooded him with all of his own ghost power and life force. Put even more simply, the child had forcefully handed part of his own life over to his father. Seeing that, Zhang Qi could not help sighing. The child kept saying he hated him and would never forgive him. Yet at the same time, he was willing to do anything to keep him alive. In the end, what the child truly wanted may never have been revenge itself. What he wanted was probably just one genuine apology from his father, and one promise he could believe in. At the same time, another system prompt appeared before Zhang Che and the others. Challenge quest complete. It was just that this time, luck had played a large role in their success, which was why they only received an A rank rating. Even so, Zhang Che's level still rose to level 4, and he obtained 4 reward items. They were a substitute doll, 5,000 ghost coins scraped together by the villagers, an exquisite urn, and a charred corpse. Right then, the child suddenly took out a flower. Then he threw it to Zhang Che without hesitation. The system immediately identified it as a C-rank material, bloodgrass. Xiao Man instantly told Zhang Che to eat it right away. For humans, bloodgrass was basically an incredible tonic, useful for restoring injuries, replenishing vitality, and strengthening the body. This was the child's gift of thanks to Zhang Che, because Zhang Che had allowed him to have a home again. After saying that, the child waved goodbye to Zhang Che and cheerfully told him to come back to Corpse Ridge Village to catch ducks sometime. Zhang Che only stood there quietly, watching in silence. In the end, one sentence alone remained in his heart. May no mountain village be left empty, may no child be left behind, and may among all the lights of this world, one always remain lit for your way home.